Chapter 795. Zhang Feng was very anxious. Because of the sense of crisis, he desperately wanted to make a pistol for self-defense. Otherwise, he would not feel safe at all. The arrival of these two great gods gave him hope. As soon as they walked out of the room, Niu Jinda and Yu Qigong could not help but ask Zhang Feng, "How do you know these two? Have you been to the western region?" Zhang Feng naturally had not been to the western region. Seeing that Zhang Feng was ignoring them, Yuqi Baolin and the others had to find Xing Chumo and the others to fool around. Zhang Feng then said, "You should know that I have a master. He once went to the western regions. He was the one who told me about this matter. Moreover, he was full of praise for their craftsmanship." "So, you have been delaying the start of the work because of these two?" Yu Qigong asked. Zhang Feng spread his hands with a wry smile. "Look at me, I have so many things to do. Besides, the smelter that Lao Li found for me hasn't come up the mountain yet. How can I do it? I only have a pair of hands. Moreover, I believe that old Cow has seen the craftsmanship of these two people before. Now that the two of them are here, I only need one person who knows how to smelt. This job can basically be done by me. By the way, old Cow, where is the person?" "He's in the workshop." "I can't have it all in my hands, can I?" Niu Jinda pointed at the back of the mountain. Zhang Feng could not help but get excited when he heard that. He could not help but quicken his pace. "Let's go. If you can wait, I can show you the power of the gun in less than 5 days." "Really?" Yu Qigong and Niu Jinda asked almost at the same time. Because of this matter, the emperor was so worried that his hair turned white. However, the people of the Ministry of Works did not dare to take action. The main reason was that the emperor also knew the importance of this thing. Once the secret was leaked, it would be fatal. As for searching for it in the Tang dynasty, Li Shimin was really worried. In the end, he made the decision and sent 3 secret letters to Niu Jinda, who was in Shuzi, asking him to look for the top smelters in the western regions at all costs. Li Shimin had learned to be smart. He wanted to use the things made by the people of the western regions to deal with these people. Most importantly, this place was thousands of miles away from the western regions. Once they signed the slave seal, they wouldn't be able to escape even if they wanted to. In addition, Yu Qigong and Niu Jinda had brought along many layers of protection. How could they possibly escape? Unless he turned into a ghost. This was Li Shimin's brilliance. This was also the purpose of Niu Jinda's return to Chang'an. The 100,000 troops of the Tang dynasty were about to head to Chuzi city. When they officially set off, if they could get even 1,000 firearms or that kind of shield, this operation would not only be a deterrent, but also a deterrent. Although they had never seen firearms. However, when Li Shimin, Yu Qigong, and the others passed on Zhang Feng's words to Niu Jinda knew that he didn't need to ask for too much. Just a little bit would be enough to change the outcome of the battle. Divine weapons were often the best things to deter the enemy. The unknown was the most terrifying thing. While they each had their own thoughts. Finally, they arrived at the forge on the edge of the cliff. At this time, the forge was filled with the stench of a fox. A group of veterans led more than 30 barbarians, who were wearing the same sheepskin, barefoot, and arms as if they were animals. Even their bare feet were covered in blood. At this time, they saw the arrival of these people. The bearded barbarians trembled all over as if they had seen the Grim Reaper. As for the veterans, when they saw these people, they instinctively straightened up and did not have any other reaction. Come, what are you all standing there for? Ask them to get up and meet their masters." Niu Jinda scolded as soon as he arrived. The veterans did not hesitate. They waved the leather whip in their hands. Zhang Feng hurriedly stopped them. Zhang Feng hated this kind of slavery. But where was this? This was the Tang dynasty, where slavery was the most prevalent. Moreover, he also knew what these people were going to do in the future. These were all his secrets. Once they were leaked, it would be a disaster. Therefore, Zhang Feng could only try his best to be merciful. When the slaves saw this, they stood up numbly and hung their heads. Zhang Feng was also very direct. He asked, "Which one of you is called Mokido? Which one of you is called Alkinan? Come out." Zhang Feng's voice did not seem to have any effect. Everyone just stood there numbly. "Are you deaf? If you don't come out, you will all die for Lao Tzu," Niu Jinda shouted. It was indeed effective. After everyone trembled in fear for a while, two people in the crowd slowly walked out of the crowd. Both of them were basically the standard of the Hu people. Their faces were full of vicissitudes. It was unknown whether it was because they walked all the way from the western regions to Chang'an, or because they had always been like this. Zhang Feng saw the two of them come out. He looked at the two of them and said, "I know that you are still afraid, but I can promise you that although I can't let you go home, I have something that you will not expect. I have something you can't imagine here, and I can guarantee that you'll become the best craftsman in the world here. I promise that as long as I, Zhang Feng, am here, no one will do anything to you. You will have the same status and treatment as me. What do you think?" Chapter 796. All the top craftsmen that Niu Jinda had brought over from the western regions were somewhat moved at this time, but there was still a trace of despair in their numb eyes. This was because they knew what kind of result awaited them. No matter what kind of promise was given at this time. Would they live to see the next day? Algernon was even more clear about this. As slaves, how could they not know what would happen to them? Once upon a time, they were top-notch blacksmiths whose names had shaken the region, and they had their own pride. Although they had been reduced to such a state, they still had their own pride. Niu Jinda couldn't stand it anymore and was about to get angry, but he was stopped by Zhang Feng. "Old Niu, don't be anxious. These people are now my people. I have the final say. Can you stand aside first?" Zhang Feng hurriedly comforted Niu Jinda and Yu Qigong. Zhang Feng had plenty of methods to make these people obediently submit. To put it bluntly, these people were no different from the mad scientists of the future. In fact, they had not seen some things. If they knew that he had things that they had never heard of or seen before, would they still be like this? That would be like seeing a ghost. Zhang Feng wasn't anxious or angry. He just took out some forging blueprints that he had drawn when he had nothing to do. These blueprints were very simple, but they were basically plans of roads and roads. Zhang Feng purposely shook the snow-white blueprint until it made a rustling sound. As for Algernon and the others, although they didn't say anything, from the way they quieted down and leaned forward slightly, it could be seen that they were carefully observing Zhang Feng's actions. Niu Jinda and Yu Qigong couldn't understand Zhang Feng's actions. They wanted to say something, but after opening their mouths, they didn't say anything. They wanted to see what Zhang Feng was up to. Zhang Feng opened the blueprints and spread them open. The blueprints were about the size of a table. On them were the blueprints of an improved crossbow, as well as the blueprints of a disassembled crossbow. These blueprints weren't the ones that everyone knew. They were the ones that had been modernized and improved in the future. They were the type of crossbow that could shoot about 1,000 meters. When the blueprints were spread out, Yu Juanda and Yu Qigong were instantly attracted by them, even though they couldn't understand them. However, they still recognized the body of the crossbow and Jian Xian. No matter how much this thing was modified, they could still see the outline of the crossbow on the top of the blueprints. "Fengzi, why does this look different from the crossbows we have seen before?" Now, he couldn't help but stare at the drawing with his bearded eyes, trying to figure out what it was. However, he could only roughly tell that it looked like a crossbow from its shape. He really couldn't understand the details of those bits and pieces. Yu Qigong and Qing Yaojin also came up and asked at the same time, "Fengzi, what is this thing of yours? Why does it look a little?" Their conversation instantly attracted the attention of the guards standing at the side. Then, everyone started whispering to each other. They were all soldiers, so they often dealt with bows and arrows. However, when they saw this thing again, they couldn't help but be surprised. Was this kid trying to make a crossbow? Zhang Feng smiled. His eyes were fixed on Arjunong and the others. Seeing that everyone was confused, Zhang Feng didn't hold back and said loudly, "You have all seen this before, so you should be familiar with it." That's right, it's something that everyone is very familiar with, a crossbow. However, your understanding is a little off. This thing is indeed a crossbow, but a normal crossbow has a shooting range of about 100 to 150 meters. However, according to my requirements and the blueprints, a crossbow made of steel can shoot at least 1,000 meters if it's based on an ordinary person's physical strength and configuration. What? 1,000 meters? How is that possible? Impossible. What in the world can make a crossbow shoot 1,000 meters? This is simply absurd. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Yu Juanda and Yu Qigong couldn't help but exclaim. From what they knew, there was nothing that could shoot more than 1,000 meters. Even that kind of huge crossbow wouldn't be able to shoot that far. At this moment, the craftsmen from the western region couldn't help but become restless. However, Arjanong and Qing Yaojin didn't react at all. It was as if this temptation hadn't reached their limit yet. Zhang Feng seemed to have expected this. He glanced at Arjanong and Qing Yaojin. He seemed to be talking to Niu Jinda and Yu Qigong, but rather to Arjanong and Qing Yaojin. You should have heard of something that I've mentioned before, right? Niu Jinda narrowed his eyes. You're talking about the crossbows made of the same material as the impenetrable shield and the invincible spear? Chapter 797. That's right, it's that kind of material. It's the steel I mentioned before. Zhang Feng nodded and continued. He pointed at the blueprint and said, most of the weapons on the market are made by companies. Although these things can be said to be willful, they are very easy to damage. If a crossbow is used for a long time, it can be said that it has to be reforged. But if a little bit of it is used, even if it's only used on the bowstring of a crossbow, the software will not only increase the hardness, strength, and extension of the crossbow to a certain extent, but it will also allow the crossbow to reach the limit of its shooting range, which is the 1,000 steps I mentioned just now. The eyes of Niu Jinda and the others turned red in an instant. This kid had mentioned steel more than once before. He had also said that it was invulnerable and that the rain was an invincible spear. However, this kid had always regarded it as a treasure and had not taken any action. But now, the emperor had allowed this kid to take out this thing at such a critical time. Even so, this kid still did not reveal how awesome this thing was. He had only told Chen Chumo and the others before. At that time, everyone thought that Zhang Feng was really bragging, and they only remembered the invulnerable spear and the invincible spear in their minds. How could they remember this material? In their hearts, this material was nothing more than that kind of iron with some other things added. But now, what about this time? This kid had actually said this in front of a group of blacksmiths from the western region who had been captured by them. Could it be that these two people, especially Algernon, were very useful to this kid? Everyone couldn't help but look at Algernon again. Even so, Algernon did not react at all. It was as if what Zhang Feng had said had nothing to do with him. Niu Jinda's temper couldn't help but rise again. When Zhang Feng arrived, he was even more expectant. The more calm he was at a time like this, the more it showed that this person was awesome, really awesome. It was just that young Master Zhang's words hadn't poked at their sore spot yet. Zhang Feng wasn't in a hurry. He once again explained to Niu Jinda and the others what was awesome about the crossbow. Instead of his previous indifference, he mysteriously pulled Lu Jinda and the others to the side and used a voice that everyone could faintly hear to speak. Brothers, do you still remember the firearms I mentioned before? Niu Jinda, Yu Qigong, and the others' eyes lit up when they heard this. They nodded without hesitation. I've heard of it. Didn't you want to make this thing? Didn't you ask these people to come here and make this thing? You talked about steel and this crossbow, which led us all to the same place. Don't tell me you don't want to make this thing. Zhang Feng glanced at Arjanon and said, no, you're wrong. That thing must be practiced. But before practicing that thing, you have to practice what you just did. If you can't even practice what you just did, then you should just forget about that thing, right? Yu Qigong frowned. What do you mean? Zhang Feng smiled faintly and raised his voice a little. Do you know why I haven't started yet? It's not that I don't want to do it, it's just that I can use it to protect myself. It's also a great opportunity for me to make a name for my White Deer Institute. Just like what you said just now, if I can solve the Emperor's urgent problem, wouldn't I be able to enter the Imperial Court in an instant? Wouldn't I have to wait for the Imperial examination 3 years later? But under this premise, the train is very dangerous. If it's not handled properly, not only will it hurt others, it will also hurt oneself. So, old you know that I cherish my life. If there's even the slightest danger, I won't dare to do it. Yu Qigong nodded at Xing Yaojin. This kid was as timid as a mouse. However, they didn't know what Zhang Feng was trying to say, so they could only go along with him. Kid, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't dawdle like a girl. All right. I know that you, old you, are an impatient person. Let's put it this way. Steel is a very important thing. It's refined from iron, and it's even more precious than snot. Take the iron piled up here as an example. Zhang Feng pointed at the pile of scrap metal in the corner of the forging room and said, as you can see, this pile of scrap metal doesn't add up to more than 10,000 pounds. It seems like a lot to you, but if I tell you that if you want to smelt them all and reforge them, you can only make about 100 caddies of steel, would you believe me? 100 caddies? Yu Qigong, Niu Jinda, and the others weren't the only ones who were surprised. Even the blacksmiths from the western region were shocked as they looked at the piles of worn-out ironware behind them. Even Algernon hurriedly glanced at the pile of rusty subways next to him. Everyone couldn't believe it at this time. There was about 80,000 jin of scrap iron, but how could they praise it? There were so many things in this kid's mouth, but he could only smelt out 100 jin. What was going on with his so-called steel? Zhang Feng ignored everyone's shock, because his eyes were fixed on Algernon and Niu Jinlong. Seeing that Algernon finally reacted, he couldn't help but raise his voice again. Yes, you didn't hear it wrong. It's 100 caddies. Do you know why? This is where the difficulty of this thing lies. In the eyes of many people, these things seem to have reached the pinnacle, but in my eyes, they are still just scrap metal. Even the famous Mo saber of the Great Tang is just a pile of scrap metal used by children to fight in my eyes. In front of a real steel saber, no matter how many iron sabers there are, they are just like wooden sticks. Silence. Silence. A deathly silence. Everyone was completely silent at this time. Seeing this, Zhang Feng continued to use his big move. He firmly believed that as long as the temptation was strong enough, he could even grind a 100-meter-thick iron rod into a needle. So, as long as this thing is really made, I can make it for you even if it has a range of 10,000 steps, let alone 1,000 steps. However, even the cleverest housewife can't cook without rice. I originally thought that this time, old bull, you would find me some top-notch blacksmithing talents from the western region. But I never expected that old bull, you would find me a bunch of trash. Chapter 798. Upon hearing this, the craftsman from the western region burst into an uproar and growled angrily. Kid, you can insult us, but you can't insult our skills. That's right. Although we are slaves now, we used to be people with high status in our respective fields. You actually dare to say that we are all trash? Boy, do you dare to make a bet with your grandfather? Yes. Let's have a bet. Whoever doesn't have a bet is a coward. Motherf asterisk cur, even if I have to risk my life, I will bite off a piece of meat from your body. You've gone too far, you've gone too far. Impudent. Shut up. Are you trying to rebel? As Niu Jinda's subordinates berated them, everyone shut their mouths. However, they still stared at Zhang Feng with bloodshot eyes. Yu Juanda and Yu Qigong seemed to have thought of something as well, so they also stared at Zhang Feng with strange expressions. This kid seemed to be stirring up trouble. They couldn't help but admire Zhang Feng a little. Back then, Lu Jinan had sacrificed at least thousands of people in order to get these people. It was for no other reason than to obtain the legendary shield and spear that were invulnerable to swords and spears. However, after he returned to the capital, he heard that this brat could actually make that kind of gun. He was looking forward to other things like that even more. Putting this aside, there were more than 30 people standing in front of him. Although he had brought back the people, the western region was basically in an uproar now. All the countries were frantically searching for these people. He also knew that these people would gather together. It would be very difficult to arouse the pride in their hearts and suppress the memories in their bodies. However, once they were squeezed out and gathered together, it would be really terrifying. This was also why Niu Jinda had ignored all the things he had set up in Gizi City and the surrounding areas, as well as the intricate network, when he had received the secret edict. Although he had brought back the people, these people were a bunch of despicable wretches. Each and every one of them was extremely arrogant. Niu Jinda could not fight these people even if he wanted to. He could not kill them even if he wanted to. Along the way, Niu Jinda was so angry that he almost died. However, in his opinion, something that was problematic was actually tamed by this kid in less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Niu Jinda couldn't help but give Zhang Feng a thumbs up in admiration. Awesome! Zhang Feng did not pay attention to Yu Juanda's praise. Instead, he put his hands behind his back and walked to Mokido and Arkanon. He asked, "I seem to hear that you are not convinced?" The two of them were so angry that their beards were trembling. Wasn't this nonsense? You've already said it like that. Who the F***CK could still hold back? Are you a F***king idiot? Zhang Feng ignored their murderous gazes as he waved the blueprint in front of them and said, "Right now, your lives are in my hands. If I say I want you to die, it's very easy. Do you see the cliff below? All I need is a gentle push, and all of you will die instantly." Bah! Trash! Trash! You only know how to bully the weak. What kind of hero are you? If you have the ability, then let's talk with real abilities. Arkanon roared angrily. Zhang Feng acted as if he didn't hear anything. He patted Arkanon's shoulder and said, don't worry. I haven't finished yet. I have another option for you. Like I said, as long as you do as I say, or if you want to prove that you're not trash, I can teach you this magical forging technique. I can also teach you this confidential thing. Whether you're a mule or a horse, whether you're trash or a talent, let's talk about it, okay? You. What do you want? Arkanon, if you're here and can't understand what Zhang Fengna is trying to say, then you've lived your life in vain. At this time, the people behind him were still looking at Zhang Feng with vigilance and anger. The husband ignored him. Finally, he looked at the top forging master, Liuli. Mokido said, although I haven't met you in Arkanon, my master has praised your craftsmanship. Now, I have a way for you to make something that will surpass anything you've made before. Believe it or not, as long as you're willing to prove your ability, I will do my best to teach you everything I know. I promise that I will send you back after 10 years. What do you think? During this time, you will be treated the same as me. 3 pots of good wine, 3 beggars' chickens, and a full meal every day. What do you think? What do you think? Same for you. You will serve for 10 years. If I, Zhang Feng, can't make you famous in the world within 10 years, I, Zhang Feng, will let you take my head at any time. Everyone was shocked, including Yu Qigong and Niu Jinda. However, Zhong Tong did not care about anyone. At this time, only 3 words flashed in his mind. The Academy of Science. Lao Tzu's Academy of Science finally opened today. Chapter 799. Alkinon and Mokido were not fools. On the contrary, the two of them wanted to live more than anyone else present. They wanted to live. They wanted their fame to continue growing. Everyone lived for their reputation. This was especially true for people like them, who cared more about their reputation, just like the great Confucians of the Great Tang. They could lose their lives, but they could not lose their reputation. And Zhang Feng just so happened to grab hold of this pain point of theirs. In fact, Zhang Feng did not lose anything. Originally, Zhang Feng had been worried about the matter of the Scientific Research Institute. After all, there were some old and stubborn people. Although it was good to go up the mountain and look good, these people were not suitable to enter the kind of people who only focused on one thing to the extent of madness. If he wanted to personally nurture some people, it would take a very long time. For example, Zhang Feng's plan for the later stage, which was related to agriculture, could be said to be very far away. However, because of these people, Zhang Feng could not help but see a glimmer of hope. Although firearms and other things like steel were somewhat biased towards a certain aspect, some people were different. This was only for some people. In Zhang Feng's eyes, as long as steel was produced, many things, such as wind-driven lathes, could save manpower. If they were used to manufacture certain things, they would enter another level. As long as these things were produced, the rubber factories and textile factories that Zhang Feng had mentioned before would be put on the right track faster. Not to mention other things like steel. Before this, Zhang Feng had not thought too much about it. As long as it was produced, it would be fine. However, after hearing Alkinen and Mokito's names, he immediately had a plan. He wanted to turn all these people into a group of scientific lunatics. They only focused on researching how to make steel into better lunatics. As long as a group of people appeared, the rest would not be far away. For example, as long as these people appeared, Du Dabing's progress could be sped up. When the time came, he would only need to cooperate with him. After all, people in physics and scientific chemistry only cared about quality, not quantity. However, they needed a lot of people to cooperate with them. For example, Mokito. His appearance was like those metal tubes, test tubes, and the like. Zhang Feng saved people and sped up the process. As for the precision manufacturing of other things, the 30 or so slaves were more than capable of doing it. Moreover, they were existences that posed no threat at all. After arranging the follow-up work for the 30 people, Zhang Feng explained in detail what they needed to pay attention to when smelting steel. He left leisurely. Niu Jinda and the others, whose heads were full of question marks, sat in Zhang Feng's living room and lit up a cigarette. Only then did they recover from their deep doubts. They could not help but ask almost in unison, "Feng Zi, are you really crazy? Can these people be of great use?" Zhang Feng nodded disapprovingly. At this time, Yu Qigong said with some lingering fear, "Feng Zi, listen to me. After all, these people are foreigners. How can they make such confidential things? If they leak this matter, even if they only tell the people on the mountain or those who transport the goods, have you thought about the consequences?" Zhang Feng smiled faintly. He took a puff of the cigarette and blew out a smoke ring. "I know what you mean. Those who are not of my race must have different intentions, right?" Yu Qigong did not speak. He just nodded with a serious face. The reason why these people were brought to the mountain was that they wanted to help the Tang dynasty find craftsmen in the future. In other words, they could be used as prisoners on death row. However, Zhang Feng wanted to put them in an important position. Moreover, he wanted to pass on the core secrets that they did not know to these people. What if this spread out? Zhang Feng shook his head and said with certainty, "In fact, sometimes these people are more reliable than those in the Tang dynasty who think they are top craftsmen or those who are famous." The two were puzzled. Zhang Feng continued, "You can treat these people as lunatics. They did do these things for fame and benefits, or for some family inheritance, but that was in the past. Now they also know that it is absolutely impossible for them to go home. Under such circumstances, hope is far more effective than despair. For example, you are one of the 4 gods of war of the Tang dynasty, but you accidentally get lost in the desert and are intercepted by the Turks. Do you think they will directly kill you to vent their anger? Or will they squeeze the most value out of you?" Yu Qigong and Niu Jinda were shocked. In an instant, a layer of white hair appeared all over their bodies. Although Zhang Feng's words were unintentional, they really poked at their sore spot. They were indeed generals. Moreover, they knew some secrets that were simply unimaginable for the Turks. They had thought countless times about what would happen if they fell into the hands of the enemy. But at this time, if they thought about it from another perspective, they could not help but think of the meaning of Zhang Feng's words just now. Although they were not cowards and were not afraid of death, in some aspects, if someone tried to goad them into action in the military field, they were likely to fall for it. Zhang Feng's words were unintentional, but he inadvertently reminded the two of them. If they also used this trick in the military, then, the several people in the room could not help but take a puff of smoke, frowning deeply. After a long time, one of them smacked the last bit of smoke in his hand and said, "Boy, I'm convinced." Chapter 800. Although the matter here had been resolved, more than 30 craftsmen from the western regions had suddenly appeared on the mountain. The news had already spread like wildfire on the mountain. "Hey, have you heard? Just now, I heard that the dean is working on some forging method." Previously, there was no movement. But today, two big uncouth men suppressed a group of people from the western regions. "I heard that they are some craftsmen. It seems that the dean wants to conduct a visit there. Moreover, he wants to hand over everything he knows to those people." When this voice reached everyone's ears, everyone was stunned for a moment. What did you say? When did the dean set up a forging workshop on the mountain? This is impossible. I just heard that the dean set up a paper mill at the foot of the mountain. How is this possible? Suddenly, he set up a forging workshop. What is the dean doing? As the sun set, all the craftsmen and the students on the mountain sat on the piles of materials and wood in the kitchen, eating in twos and threes. While eating, they whispered about this matter. Although Xing Chui and Zhang Sun sat far away, they could still hear some of these things at this time. At this time, they saw Wei Shuyu, Yuqi Baolin, the two brothers, and the boy from the Niu family running over with several black mud balls in their arms. The two of them subconsciously walked to the other side with their bowls. On the other side, Li Qingxian and Du Go had already put some account books and other things on the table into a basket. There were several bamboo bottles of beer on the table. They quietly looked at the mud balls in the hands of Yuqi Baolin and the others and drooled. When Xing Chumo and Zhang Sun Chong walked over, Yuqi Baolin and the others also placed black briquettes on the table. Out of habit, Wei Shuyu picked up 2 mouthfuls and a mudfish from under the table and knocked on it. In an instant, a fragrant smell wafted out, causing everyone to greedily take a few sniffs. Xing Chumo mysteriously took out a paper bag from his arms and waited for the golden roasted beggar's chicken. After putting it on the table, he casually sprinkled some spices on it and grabbed a chicken breast and began to eat it. When the others saw this, how could they be vague? In a short while, they divided the chickens neatly, leaving only some skin standing on the lotus leaves. While eating, Zhang Sun Chong gnawed on a bone and asked, "When I was eating and keeping watch over there just now, I heard them say that Uncle Lu has recruited more than 30 craftsmen in forging and smelting. Now Fengzi wants to impart all the forging knowledge he has learned to those people. Have you heard about this?" Li Qingxian, when he heard this, he was shocked. He subconsciously looked at Yuqi Baolin and Niu Jinda's son. "You three, what's going on?" Other than Yuqi Baolin and the other two who had just joined, everyone else knew of Zhang Feng's incredible skills. Yet, he wasn't imparting it to his own brothers, and instead, he was giving it to the Hu. What was going on? There was something going on here. When the three of them heard this, Yuqi Baolin chewed on the chicken thigh and put a chicken head in his mouth and said, "Hey! What's the big deal? I heard that those 30 or so people were given a secret order by the higher-ups." Uncle Niu even activated the spies he arranged without hesitation. He lost more than 1,000 experts in the western regions in exchange for these top-notch experts. I heard that they were going to do something about being invulnerable to swords and spears, and a spear that could pierce anything. But when they went up the mountain... Well, you can shut up. Before Yuqi Baolin could finish, Li Qingxian waved his hand and interrupted him. But there were only countless question marks in his mind. Needless to say, the secret order must have been issued by his father. But he only knew one thing. Was there no talent in the Tang dynasty that could be used? Li Qingxian couldn't help but look at Zhang Feng's house and the wisps of smoke drifting out from the windows and door. He frowned deeply. On the other side, under an old jujube tree under the waterfall, Yu Shinan and the others were sitting at a table and playing cards enthusiastically. At this moment, Ma Zhou and the others had just finished dinner. They were talking with the government about what they had just heard at the mountain gate while walking to the pig farm. And their voices happened to be heard by Yu Shinan and the others. Yu Shinan and the others asked, "What are you talking about? What did Fengzi do this time?" Seeing that it was Yu Shinan, Ma Zhou asked again. He hurriedly bowed and said, "I'm Ma Zhou. Nice to meet you." Yu Shinan asked again, "What happened just now?" Hearing that, Ma Zhou was stunned for a moment, but he still answered honestly, "Just now, it was said that the dean found a group of craftsmen from the extraterritorial region at the foot of the mountain. The dean is going to teach them all he knows about forging." The faces of Yu Shinan and the others couldn't help but change slightly. Are you sure?" Ma Zhou couldn't help but lower his body a little. "I'm sure. I heard it from many people. And at that time, your salary was also present," but he didn't say anything. Before Ma Zhou finished speaking, Yu Shinan flew into a rage. "Nonsense, this is simply nonsense." Chapter 801. They were just discussing how to make a name for themselves in the academy. However, in the blink of an eye, Zhang Feng had created such a mess. He was simply not doing his job properly. If the scholars of the world knew about this, then wouldn't White Deer Academy have to face the condemnation of everyone? Yu Shinan and the others became even angrier at the thought of this. They hurried to Zhang Feng's small wooden house. They didn't knock on the door and pushed Zhang Feng's door open. However, they were blocked by Gao Can, who was like a black tower. "The dean said he's resting. He'll come tomorrow." Gao Can didn't care so much. He only remembered the dean's orders, and that was the order he had to carry out. He didn't care about these scholars at all. Hearing Gao Can's words, as a result, he was instantly ignited like an explosive. "Zhang Feng, you brat, get out here. Get out here." Zhang Feng, who was taking a nap in the room, immediately got up from the recliner when he heard this. "Ayaya. Why are my respected teachers here?" "Here. Please come in, come in. Gao Kai, you too. My teacher is your grandmaster. How can you block them like this?" Zhang Feng hurriedly led them into the living room. He took out a wooden box and gave each of them a cigarette. He lit them up and said, "What's wrong with my respected teachers and old Mr. Sun? Why are you so angry?" He took a puff of the cigarette and enjoyed it. He swirled the smoke in his mouth and snorted coldly. "Kid, don't pretend to be a good person. Do you think we're so old that we'll be so easily fooled by you? Old man, let me ask you. What's going on with those people outside? I heard that you brought some barbarians from the outer realms over. I heard that you're going to impart your true teachings to those people. You're going to do something called smelting?" Yu Shinan was so angry that his beard was trembling. You, what are you thinking about all day? I and the others have endured so much because we want to see what you're going to do. In the end, we haven't even done anything about the academy yet, and you're already going to do something about it. Have you ever thought about how you're going to embarrass me by doing this?" Zhang Feng didn't know what these old guys were up to, but he didn't dare to say anything. He hurriedly said, "Please calm down. There's a misunderstanding." "Humph." Yu Shinan and the others snorted coldly in response to Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng thought about it and said, "Actually, how should I put it? This is also something that I promised Old Li before. Moreover, this matter also involves the knowledge that I mentioned before. These things are actually considered a part of the academy. For example, the technique of making paper. Do you all think that this is considered messing around? This thing is also considered knowledge. Blacksmithing is also considered knowledge. If it's considered knowledge, why didn't you find the Han people from the Tang dynasty? Why did you go to those barbarians? Don't you know that those who are not of our race must have different intentions? Sun Simiao hurriedly said when he saw that they were all angry. Hearing that, Zhang Feng nodded and said, "Old Mr. Sun, in fact, what you said makes sense. Some things do exist in the rules of those who are not of our race must have different intentions. However, as far as this matter is concerned, I don't think I did anything wrong." Hearing this, Yu Shinan and the others' faces became even gloomier. However, Zhang Feng continued, "As the saying goes, those who achieve great things don't stick to small details. Moreover, these people are Lao Yu and the others. The people they brought from the western regions are also counted as slaves. Think about it, everyone is selfish. It's impossible for everyone to be like me. Moreover, most of the things I impart are treasures to many people. They will treat them as family heirlooms. However, if I find some slaves, especially those from other regions, do you think they will be able to walk out of the hall in their lifetime? Impossible. As for the people of the Tang dynasty, they will eventually walk out of White Deer College one day. In other words, they will divulge some of the things they know when they are drunk or when they are in bed. Over time, these things will." Yu Shinan couldn't listen to him anymore. He waved his hand and interrupted Zhang Feng. "When it comes to learning, which thing is cherished? You have already said that this is a kind of knowledge. Then why are you so sincere about this thing? Why are you so generous about the art of making paper, wine, and even the art of making salt? Could it be that in your heart, those things are not up to standard?" In the face of Yu Shinan's aggressiveness, Zhang Feng said calmly, "Mr. Bo Shi, you have misunderstood me. In fact, this matter is part of the military studies I told you about before. Moreover, it includes the accumulation of military weapon manufacturing. What do you think, if I spread these things out, which is what I said before? I don't know if you have heard of the invulnerable shield and the invincible spear, if these things were to spread out." Seeing the strange expressions on their faces, Zhang Feng said even louder, "As long as you think it's okay, that kid will definitely announce it to the world without a second word." Chapter 802. In fact, Zhang Feng really didn't expect that Yu Shinan's people would have such a big resistance to this matter. However, when Yu Shinan just spoke, he also thought of something, which was the struggle between the civil officials and the military generals during the Zhongguan period. He instantly understood some things. Many people said that Li Shimin, the emperor of the dynasty, valued military power and despised civil officials. Some people even scolded Li Shimin for being careless and only knowing the political power on horseback. However, they didn't know that if it was a strong military power, it would be a disaster. It would really lead a country to destruction, and it wouldn't last long. If it was like the Song dynasty, which valued civil officials and despised military power, it would also make a country fall into ruin. It would be like a broken piece of cotton wool. It looked good on the outside but was broken on the inside. What was the use of this? In his academy, Yu Shinan and the others seemed to only think of one aspect, but they seemed to have automatically filtered out military science and medicine from the root. Without these people and these soldiers guarding the border, not to mention other things, just this change in the water might be the end of the Tang dynasty. Besides, in the current situation, at this time, they only knew how to recite poems and make couplets all day long and talk about the past and present. However, they didn't think about the dispute at the border. Could it be that it could be solved by just talking? If that was the case, then the world would be really peaceful. This could only be thought about. To forge iron, one needed to be strong. Moreover, it was a country. If it did not have a strong military that was intimidated, how could there be peace in the world? How could there be scholars who could recite poems and talk about things of the past and the present under the bright mirror? Zhang Feng understood very well that it was very difficult to change the pedantic mentality of everyone at this time. However, he never thought that it would be so difficult. At first, he thought that it would be Yu Shinan and the others. Based on what he had shown, the promotion of these 4 people should mean that they had already accepted this kind of person. However, at this time, because of the appearance of a forging workshop, the four people were so angry. Obviously, they thought too much. These people were still pedantic in their bones. Respected teachers, please allow this student to tell you in detail why this student is like this. They didn't speak, but just smoked one cigarette after another. It seemed that the cigarettes made by Zhang Feng at this time had infinite magic. Zhang Feng couldn't help but curse. Damn it, didn't you say that the things made by Lao Tzu were not good? Then why are you able to accept these cigarettes? But Lao Tzu just made a forging workshop and you are like this. Seeing this, Zhang Feng said, "Respected teachers, what do you think of the taste of this cigarette made by me? How is the effect?" They didn't know what Zhang Feng wanted to say, but they still nodded and answered Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng saw this and said, "In fact, respected teachers, you don't know that the raw materials of the cigarettes in your hands are from the merchants of Hui country. For example, there is a kind of thing that can grow crazily in the dry land without rain all year round. This kind of thing is called potato, and there is another kind of thing called sweet potato. If these two things are introduced to the Tang dynasty, the Tang dynasty will never have a shortage of food. And these things are far away from here." Yu Shinan and the others heard this and couldn't help but twitch their eyelids. They looked at the cigarettes in their hands and couldn't help but smoke. Sun Simiao seemed to be more interested in this and couldn't help but ask, "Boy, are you serious? If there is really that kind of food, then isn't this country very rich?" Zhang Feng nodded. Then, he picked up the rag on the table and wiped off all the things written by the person who handed it to Li Qingxian on the blackboard. Then, he picked up a piece of chalk and drew a big circle on it. "This is where we live. We are in this circle, and the location of our hall is probably in this place." While talking, Zhang Feng drew a circle in a place and wrote the words, "Tang Dynasty," in the circle. Then, he said, "In fact, you should also know that to the east of the Tang Dynasty is the boundless sea. But you should know that at the end of the sea is a wild land. There are many things that we don't know about growing on this land. These things are actually prepared for some people in the wild as the most basic rations. Even a large part of them is wasted. Among them are the potatoes and sweet potatoes that this boy just mentioned. There are even some things that you have never heard of. For example, chili and corn. These things are very far away, but if we want to count on these things now, for example, if we want to go to Tiandi or Persia, it will take at least half a year. It would take at least half a year to go back and forth, and there were many uncertainties in this process. We want to explore the outside world, and the outside world wants to explore our Tang dynasty. For example, the black-clothed Abbasid Caliphate that just appeared is very prosperous. As far as this boy knows, the national strength of this country is not inferior to the Tang dynasty. Chapter 803. Zhang Feng didn't stop talking. He glanced at the crowd and continued, "If this country wants to conquer the East, what do you think will happen if they come into contact with the Tang dynasty? At that time, Tubo, Turkic, and other countries will take the opportunity to invade. Do we need to persuade them not to invade our country with just our words? Wrong. This requires a powerful army, an invincible army, a comfortable living environment where all of us can drink, chat, and talk about the world in peace and contentment under such circumstances. I don't know how you understood the phrase emphasizing literature and belittling military force in the past, but in White Deer College, I am a military and all other aspects mixed together. This is also the foundation of the small White Deer College. As for the current smelting technique, I have no other thoughts. I just want to make the Tang dynasty into an existence that no one dares to touch. Right now, the outside world of the Tang dynasty is very chaotic. You should have heard that the soldiers of the Tang dynasty are now fighting a bloody battle to protect our Tang dynasty. What they lack is the invulnerable shield and the invincible spear that I have made. If these two things exist, please ask your teacher. Who dares to bully our Tang dynasty?" At this moment, Yu Shinan's men were so shocked by Zhang Feng's words that their faces turned pale. Zhang Feng said everything he wanted to say in one breath. In fact, Zhang Feng had always wanted to say these things because the things he wanted to make were things that didn't exist in this era. For example, the firearms that were being made now and some things that he wanted to experiment with in the future. Instead of wasting his breath to explain in the future, or saying that such things would happen again, it was better to get the pain over with. At this moment, he explained everything clearly. Anyway, what was the big deal about these things? In the future, these things would slowly appear. If he didn't make the pie as round as possible, Yu Shernan's men wouldn't be the only ones who would come to drag him down. At that time, there would be countless people who would be able to drag her husband down. There would even be countless obstacles. Zhang Feng was disgusted by these things, but he also understood that they were bound to appear. Since the 4 big clans had taken the initiative to step forward, Zhang Feng didn't mind letting them shoulder some things for him. After all, Zhang Feng really didn't have the time to explain these things to others all day long. There were plenty of mountains to deal with. Why would he need to step forward? Zhang Feng lit a cigarette and ignored the 5 people who were deep in thought. He slowly leaned back on the reclining chair and leisurely smoked his self-made cigarettes. He knew that he had achieved the effect at this time. He just needed to give them a little time to digest it. After all, this pie was a little too big. Zhang Feng didn't hesitate to draw a part of the world map. As for how they would understand it, it would depend on their own ability. Moreover, the steam engine hadn't appeared yet. If he made these things appear at this time, it would be really harmful. Biting off more than one could chew was not an idiom. For example, the potatoes, sweet potatoes, and other things that Zhang Feng mentioned now. Zhang Feng knew these things. They had been brewing for a long time in his memory. The Tang dynasty was now short of food. Many people were anxious, and the most anxious one was Zhang Feng. After all, although he now had an industry, the shortage of food in the Tang dynasty was widespread. He could support it for half a year, but after half a year, he still had to rely on himself to solve some things. Now, it was just about July and August. Potatoes, this thing, became Zhang Feng's first thing to solve. As long as potatoes appeared, Zhang Feng was confident that at least the people on the mountain would be able to eat potatoes by the end of the year. At least they wouldn't have to starve for the new year. As for after the new year, let's talk about it later. At this time, Yu Shernan was still immersed in Zhang Feng's words, unable to extricate himself for a long time. The cigarette flickered, and the sky gradually darkened. The flickering cigarette was like the stars in the dark night sky. Sometimes it illuminated a face in deep thought. Sometimes it was hidden in the darkness. After a long time, Yu Shernan asked in a hoarse voice, "Zhang Feng, old man wants to ask you. Do the things you said have to be part of your so-called military science and this forge? Old man can't understand you more and more. But boy, the long speech you said today, old man and the others need to digest it well." Chu Suiliang also let out a long sigh. Ah. I'm old. When a person gets old, his memory will slowly fade. Boy, you said too much information today. We need to digest it. Well, we'll leave first. By the way, this time I'm here to tell you that the cigarettes are gone. Remember to send cigarettes to old man and the others. Chapter 804. Yu Shernan and the others left in a hurry. They were really dumbfounded by Zhang Feng's words. Zhang Feng had said far too many things this time. Although in their books and their understanding of the world, they knew that this world was very large and that it was vast and abundant, in their subconscious minds, these things basically all came from the Great Tang. As for the barbarian lands outside the Great Tang, what could they possibly have? But now that they thought about what Zhang Feng said, they still felt that it was incredible. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, and that corn, new terms that they had never heard of, actually appeared here. How could they not be shocked? After they returned to their residence in a daze, Ouyang Sun slapped his thigh and said, "No, we've been led astray by this guy." Only then did they realize what was going on. That's right. Why did they go to Zhang Feng today? Wasn't it for the academy? Why was she being led astray by him as they talked? And just at this time, when Yu Shinan and the others were about to go look for Zhang Feng again to reason with him, they saw Gao Can, that big black guy, carrying a big bundle of white paper, boldly walk into the little bamboo house. Then, with a dong sound, he placed the big bundles of white paper at their feet under the stunned gazes of Yu Shinan and the others. The headmaster asked me to send this over. 50 kilograms per person. This is all the production today. He asked you to divide it among yourselves. The rest will be sent to you in several batches. While speaking, Gao Can turned and left without waiting for Yu Shinan and the others to say anything. Yu Shinan and the others were dumbfounded by what they saw. After Gao Can's figure disappeared, they hurriedly squatted on the ground and touched the white paper on the ground with trembling hands. Yu Shinan hugged the white paper as if he was hugging a baby who had just been born. What a waste of an immortal. This is a waste of an immortal. Boorish. Boorish. How could you just casually throw something so precious to old man on the ground? When the academy reopens, let's see how the old man will deal with this extravagance. It's simply rotten to the bone. With the prodigal Zhang Feng on top, how good can his subordinates be? The few of them held paper in their arms. Although it weighed 50 kilograms, how could they still be the frail old man? He was even more robust than a man in his prime. The few of them cursed Gao Can as they moved the papers on the floor onto the table bit by bit with heartache. Only then did they sniff the fragrance of the papers while rubbing their faces. Good stuff. This was really good stuff. As far as they knew, Xian paper only existed in important institutions of the court. Even if they could save as much as possible, they would only use cheap paper unless it was absolutely necessary. Apart from the administrative agencies of the Tang dynasty, the documents that were required to be reported to the prefectures were usually written on paper. Some poorer people even used bamboo slips. Once Xian paper really appeared, as long as the boys' paper was sold at a slightly cheaper price than Xian paper, which was 700 copper coins per kilogram as he said, then, although it was 300 copper coins less, but those who could afford it really didn't care about the 300 copper coins. Furthermore, this Xian paper was too expensive, and the production rate was too low. Take the 4 major paper mills in Chang'an as an example. Their monthly output was only 1,200 caddies. Excluding the paper used by the imperial palace, the paper used for foreign trade, and the paper used by the various mansions every month, it would be considered a good output if they could sell 200 caddies each. More importantly, if such a large amount of Xian paper appeared, not only would the people's book collections not depreciate, but it would also make the bamboo slips and Xian paper, which were not easy to preserve, more compact. Moving houses in the past required dozens of horse carriages to carry books, but now it might only require 3 horse carriages or less. What was this? This was efficiency. Back to the academy. Once the academy had so much paper, what could the students do? Why did the academy in the past have fewer students? On one hand, paper was expensive. On the other hand, it was because paper was expensive. Every day, the students could only practice in the sand table. Not only was this tiring, but it also directly reduced the efficiency. They couldn't help but start to think about it. No, the Xian paper is too precious. If this prodigal continues to waste it, sooner or later something will happen to the Xian paper. Let's go and find that boy. These Xian paper must be given to the academy first. Chu Suiliang was the first one who couldn't help but stand up. In the next moment, Yu Shinan and Sun Simiao couldn't sit still anymore. That's right. If this thing is really wasted by this boy, it will really cause a big problem. Let's go, such a good thing, let the academy use it first. The few of them were also anxious. Like a local tycoon, they treated the paper mill as their own. They didn't have the arrogance that they had when they came up the mountain and treated money like dirt. The few of them didn't have time to say anything. They hurriedly locked the door 3 times. Still feeling uneasy, Sun Simiao directly asked Elder Gao to personally guard the door for them. Then, they hurried to Zhang Feng's place. Once they entered, they didn't wait for Zhang Feng to stand up and said directly, "Zhang Feng boy, from today onwards, all sales of this Xian paper must go through our hands." Zhang Feng couldn't wrap his head around it. He said in shock, "Respected teachers, what's going on?" Chapter 805. What's going on? You're asking us what's going on? Yu Shinan was so angry that his beard was trembling. He pointed at the white paper that Zhang Feng was making cigarettes with and said with a pale face, "This paper. All right, you know more about paper than we do. But old man wants to ask you, do you still want your academy? 3 years, you only have 3 years. Why do you think old man and the others came up the mountain? I just want to see if the 9 grand scholars that you talked about can appear here. Old man thought that you were just bragging about this paper. Who would know that you can really produce so much paper in a day? Now, the academy will officially open in a month or so. Look at you now, you're sloppy all day. How much paper do these students need every day? Have you prepared all the things that the students need to go to school?" Zhang Feng was asked 3 times in a row by Yu Shinan and didn't know what to say. "Weren't you all doing well before? What's wrong with you?" Zhang Feng felt a headache coming on. "Dear teachers, I also want to wait for this white paper to come out. After you use it and are satisfied, I'm going to tell you about it. Since all of you are so considerate of my academy, then I'll tell you my plan." Yu Shinan and the others automatically filtered out Zhang Feng's words about what would happen after they were used. From the moment they came up the mountain, they didn't give Zhang Feng a chance to talk about it. Now that Zhang Feng said so, they reacted. "Bring me a brush and ink." Yu Shinan waved his sleeves and looked at Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng looked around and saw that everyone was staring at him. He touched his nose and slowly took out a brush and ink and put it on the tea table in front of Yu Shinan. Yu Shinan didn't hesitate. He took out a few pieces of white paper that Zhang Feng had cut for cigarettes, dipped it in ink and wrote a line of words. Then he hurriedly stood up and stood under the lamp to carefully observe the changes of the ink. They stared at the paper in the flickering candlelight with their eyes wide open, but they were silently keeping track of the time. After 10 breaths, Yu Shinan took the paper from under the lamp, dipped his finger in some saliva and pressed it on the paper. There was no ink at all. Yu Shinan didn't believe it and wiped the paper with his sleeve. He still couldn't wipe the ink off. Their pupils couldn't help but flicker fiercely under the candlelight again. After they checked the ink on the paper, Yu Shinan said with satisfaction, "We have checked the paper. Now let's talk about the serious matter. How do you think we should do it?" While speaking, Yu Shinan lit a cigarette. The cigarette, which was as thick as a little finger, went out one by one under the lamp. Zhang Feng coughed and said, "Dear teachers, I have some opinions about the teaching of the academy. I wonder if you can listen to me?" But before he spoke, Sun Simiao coughed and interrupted Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng glanced at Sun Simiao, who rarely spoke about the academy. He couldn't help thinking, didn't he just give me the paper? Could it be? But Zhang Feng still said respectfully, "Please enlighten me, Mr. Sun." Sun Simiao touched his beard and smoked. He looked up and down at Zhang Feng and then said, "You are a very smart person. In the future, your achievements will reach a level that the old man can't imagine. At this time, although you haven't entered the palace to meet the emperor, the old man knows that the emperor favors you very much. This is your luck." The old man won't say anything more. "Now, you've created so many things in one go. Just like what you said before, it's easy to break if you're too rigid. Remember, don't be arrogant because of your talent. Now, you're not only the dean of the academy, but also a great Confucian scholar and an official of the imperial court. You have to set an example for everything. As a minister and a student, you have to remember one thing, that is, steadiness. Even if you are smart, if you don't, your achievements in the future will be limited. It will even be difficult for you to become a great person." Zhang Feng blinked. He really couldn't understand at the moment. He hurriedly asked, "May I ask, Mr. Sun, how am I not steady?" Hearing this, Sun Simiao smiled faintly and shook his head. This brat was still trying to pick a fight. Sun Simiao, Yuchi Gong, and the others laughed and said, "You still dare to ask? The old man asked you. You once boasted that you could become 9 grand scholars. Isn't that enough? Right now, the White Deer Academy has basically become the place where the eyes of everyone in the world gather. You should be even more careful with your words and actions. Others won't say anything if you say it after you've achieved your goal. But if you say it 3 years ago, in the hearts of those who have ulterior motives, you're simply too rash. How can you do such a laughable thing? There are actually people who want to laugh at me?" Zhang Feng was instantly unhappy and cursed in his heart. In fact, this kind of thing was common in any era. After all, those who couldn't eat grapes would always say that the grapes were sour. Thus, Zhang Feng revealed a confident smile. "I think my image is quite good." Yu Shinan and the others couldn't bear to watch any longer. They hurriedly interrupted. All right. You brat, stop arguing. If you want to continue, what can we do? Remember, we are all experienced people. What we say is for your own good." Zhang Feng pursed his lips. He didn't say anything else. Seeing this, Yu Shinan asked contentedly, "Then tell us now. What plans do you have for the college? It would be best if it can be decided by tonight. That way, we won't have to waste our time on this mountain." "Fine. You're so bored that your balls hurt. I was still wondering if you guys were trying to trick me. Now, it seems like it's time to find something for you guys." Chapter 806. Zhang Feng hurriedly straightened his face and stood up. "Dear teachers, I really have a big thing here, and I need your help." Yu Shinan and the others saw this. They looked at each other, and there was a touch of understanding in their eyes. "Boy, tell us about it." Yu Shinan waved his hand. "After all, we have been eating and drinking on this mountain for a few days. If we don't find something to do, it can't be justified." Hearing this, Zhang Feng's face flashed with a touch of excitement. "Dear teachers, even if you live on this mountain for 8 or 10 years, it is a blessing that I can't even ask for." "How can you say that? That's enough. Put away your flattery. It's useless in front of us." Yu Shinan glared at Zhang Feng, lit a cigarette and took a puff. "Tell us about it. If it's not difficult or you want us to carry bricks, you'd better not say it." "How can I?" Zhang Feng said with a straight face. "However, there is still 1 month before the academy officially opens. I have made a few sets of books here, which are the books needed for teaching. I hope you can take a look." While speaking, Zhang Feng took out several thread-bound blue books that were the same size as the books of that era from under the pillow in the bedroom and handed them to the others. However, these books were written with the titles of military science, medicine, physics, literature, mathematics, and several major categories. They looked at it and then glanced at Sun Simiao doubtfully. Sun Simiao smiled faintly. "Good guy, you even calculated the old man?" However, Sun Simiao still took the medical book and read it with relish. Then, when they were reading the books, Zhang Feng said, "Now the teaching method of the Tang dynasty is generally based on reading the Book of Songs, the Analects of Confucius, and the teacher's narration. Therefore, the students are going to completely change this teaching method. In the morning, they will read the books of the sages for 2 hours, and then study literary works in the next 2 hours. The works of the great masters from ancient times to the present and the stories behind them will be explored by the students after class. After that, they would rest for 3 hours, eat and rest. In the afternoon, they would memorize the books of the sages and study other subjects, such as mathematics, and so on. In the evening, during the last lesson, they would study medicine, leaving some time for them to complete their assigned homework. The next morning, the teachers would review their homework and interpret their doubts." Zhang Feng talked about the primary school curriculum and junior high school curriculum he had imagined, as well as the teaching method based on the current situation of the Tang dynasty. Except for Yu Shinan, who had heard it once, the others were all immersed in the textbooks written by Zhang Feng at this time. Boy, old man wants to ask you, what is your so-called medicine and this alcohol? Don't we use quicklime for disinfection now? Can you tell old man what this alcohol is? This, Zhang Feng naturally knew that Sun Simiao was going to ask questions. He hurriedly said, Old son, this alcohol is actually something extracted from white wine. I want to ask you, old son, if you encounter a red wound, what is the general survival rate? I mean, for example, a wound that is more than 1 foot long and has already festered. Yu Shinan and the others heard this and couldn't help but raise their heads curiously. They also had a lot of questions, but when they heard the word alcohol, they couldn't help but be interested. Sun Simiao said without thinking, if it's a leg or a hand, if it's in spring or summer, if old man or a doctor personally takes care of it, it's basically possible to survive more than a month's weather. What if it's on the battlefield? Or the wound has already festered? Zhang Feng asked again. A handful of quicklime, and the rest depends on the person himself and the medicine. As for whether it can be cured or not, it depends on the person's body. Sun Simiao continued. Zhang Feng nodded. People in this era didn't know what medicine was at all, let alone what medical care was. If he said too much, the others wouldn't understand. Zhang Feng just said, if such a person is in my hands, if I say that I have a 100% chance of saving his life, would you believe it? And in addition to not being able to regenerate broken limbs, I also know the blood for blood technique. Would you believe it? When Sun Simiao heard this, his expression changed abruptly. He flipped open Zhang Feng's magical medical book again, took a deep breath, and said solemnly, Kid, I don't know who your teacher is, but with this medical book in old man's hands, you will definitely surpass Bien Ke, Hua Tua, and other medical sages. Why did you publicize this magical medical book to the public? Do you know the importance of this book? Once it spreads, your White Deer College will instantly become the target of public criticism. Zhang Feng smiled. The road needs people to walk on it. When many people walk on it, it will naturally appear. Look at the road, I naturally know what I'm doing. Chapter 807. Yet another famous phrase from his mouth. Yu Shinan and the others felt that Zhang Feng's appearance was simply a blow to them. However, Zhang Feng continued, Elder son, at the end of this book, there are all the annotations of what I just said. If you really don't understand, how about I give you a practical experiment when I have time? Also, I have prepared some alcohol and some toothpaste. The people on this mountain will more or less be injured. Why don't you experiment according to what I wrote in the book? No. Boy, are you sure that these things can be learned by everyone? Sun Simiao didn't ask whether Zhang Feng was telling the truth. Instead, he was extremely worried about what Zhang Feng was going to do at this time. Although he also knew that if this thing in his hand was spread out, the more people who learned it, the more benefits the people of the Tang dynasty would receive, he didn't know whether this was good or bad. Zhang Feng smiled indifferently. Since I have handed this thing to you, as for how to teach it, it's all up to you. As for how many disciples you want to accept and how many good seedlings you find, you need to select from these disciples on the mountain. You know, boy, lazy. Sun Simiao smiled speechlessly. Well, since you dare to not take out such a peerless book, then old man will accompany you in your madness. Old man wants to see what kind of waves this medical book of yours can create. Also, this old man would like to see what you can achieve with your so-called physics and this science. Since you're willing to give us your trump card, then if we don't give you a reassuring pill, you'll definitely get angry. Yu Shinan closed the book in his hand. After exchanging glances with Ouyang Sun and the others, he added, Boy, as elder son said, whether it is the medical book or the things in our hands, since you are so assured, although we don't know whether this method is right or not, since you said so, we will treat it as an attempt. If it succeeds, you will be a hero of the Tang dynasty and the hero of our thousands of students, but, are you sure that the things in this book can be taught? Yu Shinan waved the book in his hand and asked. Zhang Feng shook his head and said, It can be taught. As for how to teach, it depends on the teachers. I mean, in each book, I have marked the difficulty level. As for the new students, I still suggest that everyone should have a basic understanding. That is to say, the first 10 pages can be taught at will. After that, I will perfect this novice teaching material with the teachers. From the 11th page to the 20th page, I'm going to teach this student tomorrow. Of course, in the second year, we'll be able to pick out the good and bad results, as well as what a person is suited for and what kind of talent they have. We'll focus on nurturing them. As for the last 10 pages, we can teach them in the third year. All the classes will be divided into 3 classes, A, B, and C. The students who are recruited every year need to be rehearsed and divided into classes according to this order. As for the most accurate ones, we will have to wait until the third year to find the elites. I am going to set up a special training class. At that time, these elites will be able to learn some more sophisticated things, such as the manufacturing technique, the hematopoietic blood exchange technique, physics, and so on. Zhang Feng slowly explained the division of classes, as well as how the textbooks should be taught, bit by bit. Everything was explained in detail. In the first year, it was basically science, so that everyone would have a sense of hygiene and awareness in all aspects. This was not difficult. He only needed to teach them some things to pay attention to in daily life and how to distinguish some things that they encountered in daily life. As for the second year, this was the key. As for the third year, this was the time to really find and cultivate the key talents for the science and technology department of the academy. Although Zhang Feng was confident that he could educate all these people within a year, the difficulty was that these people still had no way to accept these things. Therefore, he needed 2 years to change their thinking, and the last year was the most critical sprint. After a detailed introduction, Yu Shinan and the others finally completely annihilated the idea that Zhang Feng was crazy. What exactly was this kid thinking in his head? After Zhang Feng finished talking for a long time, Yu Shinan and the others still had their heads down. No one knew what they were thinking. Zhang Feng was not in a hurry. He just stood in front of them, lit a cigarette, and waited quietly. He knew that these all needed time to digest. He had said too many things today. So many that Zhang Feng wondered if these people could digest them completely. Yu Shinan and the others smoked one cigarette after another. From time to time, they would gather together and mutter a few words. Zhang Feng saw that the cigarettes in the basket were getting fewer and fewer. Zhang Feng suspected that these old guys could not sleep at night and were smoking here. Just after the last cigarette was smoked by Chu Suiliang, and the cigarette holder was still unsatisfied, the few of them clapped their hands and said, "Kid, we have decided. Old man and the others will accompany you in your madness, but there will be enough cigarettes and alcohol." Chapter 808. The next morning, Zhang Feng got up early, which was rare for him. He sneaked out of the crowd and found Cripple Wang. Cripple Wang was so excited when he heard Gao Can say that Zhang Feng was looking for him that he almost jumped 3 feet high. Since he took over the business of making beer cans, he had the final say in the market of bamboo and wooden barrels in the Cheng and brewery. Because of Zhang Feng's appearance, Cripple Wang and his family, as well as the veterans in the reclining workshop, could not only fill their stomachs, but also find a good match on the mountain. How could Cripple Wang not be excited? As soon as he entered Zhang Feng's room, Cripple Wang was so excited that he almost bowed down and worshipped him. Zhang Feng did not wait for him to react. He hurried out of the room and whispered in his ear, "Come with me." Although he did not know what Zhang Feng was doing so mysteriously. However, Cripple Wang was someone who had been on the battlefield, so he still had a discerning eye. He hurriedly put away the excitement on his face and vigilantly pulled out the hatchet from his waist. He held it tightly in his hand and followed Gao Can to Zhang Feng's left and right. Zhang Feng didn't say anything. He led the two of them around the stone road that was being paved at the construction site. After that, they went to the forging workshop to take a look. Then, they went into another valley beside the forging workshop. This mountain valley looked ordinary and unremarkable. But basically, everyone in Mount Shao knew about it. The pine trees here couldn't be compared to others. Not to mention the pine trees that required 3 people to wrap around, even the pine trees that required 10 people to wrap around were everywhere. And all the wooden things in Xingshan Academy were made from this place. At this time, Cripple Wang could not help muttering in his heart. This place not only produced pine trees, but also a kind of wild rabbit that specialized in eating wild rabbits with pine nuts. The meat of this thing was very famous even in Chang'an. Could it be that the dean called them here early in the morning to hunt rabbits? However, before the 3 of them entered the woodworking factory that was covered with white bark, they heard 2 loud shouts and hearty laughter coming from the corner in front. Ha ha ha, Chentinu, you've lost. Hurry up and give Lao Tzu 10 shots. Bullsh *T. You're the one who cheated, okay? Lao Tzu even chased the hare into the tree hole. Don't tell me that Lao Tzu didn't know to catch it himself. Hearing Ching Chumo's familiar voice, Zhang Feng was a little confused. These people were the kind of people who wouldn't get out of bed until the sun was up. Why were they here so early? It was as if the sun had risen from the west. Without waiting for Zhang Feng to take any action, a loud sound of wind breaking could be heard. Gao Can's hair instantly stood on end. He couldn't care about anything else and rushed towards Zhang Feng. It was also at this moment that a wooden stick as thick as an arm swept over the top of their heads. Chintinu, are you trying to take Lao Tzu's life? Zhang Feng was finally angry. Looking at the wooden stick not far away, his eyelids twitched wildly. If it really hit him, not to mention breaking his arms and legs, he wouldn't even be able to keep his life. Ching Chumo and Yuchi Baolin, who were fighting together, were shocked when they heard this. Li Qingxian and the others, who were squatting at the side, were also shocked. They hurriedly got up and rushed over in a panic. The moment they saw Zhang Feng, their expressions changed abruptly. Fengzi, why are you here? F***ck, Gao Can, are you a blockhead? Why didn't you tell us that Fengzi was coming? Fengzi, are you okay? The few of them hurriedly propped Zhang Feng up and pinched here and there. Zhang Feng was a little annoyed. Let me ask you, what are you doing here so early in the morning? Seeing that Zhang Feng was fine, the few of them breathed a sigh of relief. They mysteriously brought Zhang Feng to the place where they were just now. This was the place where all the beams, purlins, and doors and windows were made on the abandoned mountain. It was convenient to use the local materials. The few of them also made a few small wooden houses with wood here, which looked quite artistic. Entering one of the slightly larger wooden houses, the first thing that entered his nose was the smell of rosin. There were also 3 roasted hares roasting in the fire in the middle of the wooden house. Fengzi, isn't it because I saw you talking to those old fellows too late last night? The few of us were thinking of getting some wild game to satisfy your cravings. Zhang Feng didn't believe that these people would be so kind. He asked suspiciously, really? Li Qingxian pointed at the hares on the fire, and then pointed at the pile of rabbit skins outside the door. Look, these are still fresh. We were planning to have a good drink when you woke up. You are unaccountably solicitous. Tell me, what do you want? Zhang Feng immediately became alert. Li Qingxian was taken aback when he heard that. Zhang Feng, we brothers have been smoking for the past 2 days and nearly smoked ourselves to death, not to mention you. We brothers think that you need some nourishment, so we're thinking of changing your name. Fine, if you don't want to eat it. We can eat it. Hearing that, Zhang Feng breathed a deep sigh of relief. In the past few days, he was really scared of being extorted by these people. At this time, hearing what they said, Zhang Feng felt that they were really greedy and came to get hares. Chapter 809. They shouted that they had been wronged. Zhang Feng didn't think much of it. He flipped through the golden rabbit and slowly took out a few bottles and jars from his bosom. Instantly, the eyes of Li Qingxian and the others lit up. Zhang Sunchong was even more surprised as he asked, could it be that you're also here to hunt this game? Do you think Lao Tzu is as lazy as you? Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. Lao Tzu is here for something important. Who would be like you? You're tired of eating beggar's chicken, so you're here to hunt game behind my back? Hey! Ching Chimo couldn't take it anymore. He pushed Yuchi Baolin and said, "It's all because of this kid. The three of them said they wanted to give you a gift and came to us early in the morning. In the end, it was Li Gan who spoke. We thought about it and felt that you don't lack anything except delicious food. So we asked a few people and learned that the wild rabbits here are good. That's why we came here to hunt some wild rabbits for you. Iron Bull, it's my fault. I didn't tell Fengzi in advance. This is my fault. Since Brother Fengzi doesn't like it, I'll go down the mountain now. Come on, you guys. Stop acting. You're not cut out for it." Zhang Feng was speechless as he looked at their clumsy acting skills. This time, I really didn't come here for this. Otherwise, have you ever seen me wake up so early? Seeing that Zhang Feng had exposed them, they didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, they asked curiously, "Then what are you doing here?" Zhang Feng tore off a rabbit leg and said as he chewed, "Do you remember that I was looking for carpenters?" Hearing this, Li Qingxian's eyes flashed. "Are you talking about the carpenters that your father-in-law found for you?" Zhang Feng wanted to explain, but he was too lazy to do so. Anyway, these people wouldn't believe him. He nodded and said, "That's them. Didn't you notice that there was a group of people in the forest who were also doing carpentry?" When they heard this, they thought for a while and really remembered. A group of mysterious craftsmen came to this forest. They didn't cut down trees every day. Instead, they wandered in the forest and finally carried a few odd-looking trees or roots the size of an arm into a bamboo forest. No one knew what they were doing. As long as there were strangers, they would immediately stop and hide the things they made as if they were treasures. So it turned out that these people were found by Feng Zi, this kid? A few people couldn't help but come forward and ask, "What are these people doing?" Anyway, I heard that it's quite mysterious. Mysterious? Zhang Feng smiled. You'll know soon enough. While speaking, Zhang Feng called for a few people to eat and drink together. After eating and drinking to their heart's content, Zhang Feng let out a long sigh and waved his hand. Everyone smoked and slowly walked into the depths of the forest under Zhang Feng's lead. The pine forest was very deep. However, because of the logging, the roads that were trampled out in all directions and the flattened trees exposed large areas of land that hadn't seen the sun for a long time. The person Zhang Feng was looking for. It was at a place called the Kidney Cliff. After climbing for half an hour, they could faintly see a dense bamboo forest with bursts of smoke rising in spirals. Who is it? The arrival of these people was obviously noticed by the people on the cliff. After a shout, Zhang Feng hurriedly waved his hand. It's me, Feng Zi. Hearing this, there was no movement for a moment, but there was a rustling sound. When they climbed up the cliff, the top of the cliff was very spacious. It was at least 100 square meters. These craftsmen used the dense bamboo to tidy up the place and turned it into a place for people to live. At this time, more than 30 men in their 40s and even their 70s and 80s were respectfully standing by the side of the only mountain path that led to the cliff. When they saw Zhang Feng and the others going up the mountain, a man in his 40s hurriedly stepped forward and said, "I'm Zhang Wei." "Greetings, young master." Zhang Feng said perfunctorily and asked, "Today, I'm here to, young master, I know what you're here for. I've prepared everything for you. Please take a look." While speaking, Zhang Wei was about to lead Zhang Feng to see the things they moved out. Zhang Feng waved his hand instead. "These people are all old craftsmen from the Ministry of Works from Longyu Road?" "Yes, young master." Zhang Wei pointed to an old man standing behind him and said, "This is an old craftsman from the Ministry of Works, but he's from the previous dynasty." Zhang Wei's voice was normal at the beginning, but only Zhang Feng could hear the latter part. Hearing this, the old man cupped his hands at Zhang Feng. "Old man Chao Jun greets the dean. These people are all from my family." Seeing this, Zhang Feng hurriedly bowed. So it's old Master Chao. Chao Jun had never seen Zhang Feng act like this before. Seeing this, he was shocked and hurriedly reached out to help Zhang Feng. However, he was afraid that the calluses on his hands would prick Zhang Feng, so he anxiously scratched his ears and cheeks. After bowing, Zhang Feng looked at the people behind the old man and said, "These are old Master Chao's family? Then why don't I see the women in old Master Chao's family?" Hearing this, Chao Jun pointed down the mountain. "Thanks to old Master Zhang's kindness, my family of more than 30 people are now working in the food factory at the foot of the mountain." Hearing this, Zhang Feng dropped the subject. He waved to Cripple Wang behind him and said, "Old Master Chao, is there any progress on the matter that I asked you to do? I'm ashamed to say this." A hint of shame flashed across Chao Jun's wrinkled face as he said, "These things are too superior, so this old man only managed to rush out the first batch of prototypes last night. I didn't expect that Sir Dean would come personally. This old man has been negligent. You're too kind. It's already good enough that you were able to produce them in time. I thought that these things would take at least a month to produce. I didn't expect old Master Chao to be able to produce them in just half a month." Chapter 8:10. The conversation between Zhang Feng and Elder Chao. Li Qingxian and the rest were dumbfounded. What kind of conversation was this? They could not understand a single word. Their gazes involuntarily drifted to the wooden platforms not far away. They saw strange things placed on the tables. They did not know what they were used for, but they were densely engraved with ink marks. They did not know what they were used for. Zhang Feng and old Chao chatted for a long time, and after Zhang Feng obtained some useful information, he pointed to Cripple Wang and said, "Old Chao, the first thing I came here for today is to see how these things are going. The second thing is to make them. If they are done, then I will mass produce them. At the very least, within the next month, I will need at least 10 sets of these things." Cripple Wang nodded and said, "In addition, I have another important thing." As he spoke, Zhang Feng pointed to Cripple Wang and said, "He is also a craftsman I trust. The beer cans you drink are all made by him. You can call him Cripple Wang. As for his name, I don't know. You can contact him later, but his craftsmanship is excellent. If you can, work with him and make 2,000 sets of tables and chairs in a short time. How about it?" "What? 2,000 sets?" This, Elder Chao was almost scared to death. 2,000 sets a month. Wasn't this asking for his life? Cripple Wang seemed to be prepared for this. He did not say anything and still stood behind Zhang Feng, unmoved. However, Zhang Feng waved his hand and said, "You don't have to say anything else. Let me take a look at what you have made. As for the tables and chairs, you guys can divide the work among yourselves. Cripple Wang has 300. How many people does Cripple Wang have?" 329 brothers who know carpentry. "Old Chao, don't worry. These people are all veterans. They will not share your share. We only need to take care of their food, accommodation, wine and meat." Chao Jun heaved a deep sigh of relief when he heard this. Li Qingxian and the others couldn't help but look at Zhang Feng in surprise. If there was a need for tables and chairs, tens of thousands of them could be found in Chang and city. Why was he in a hurry to make them now? Come, Lord Zhu, please." Without waiting for Li Qingxian and the others to ask, Chao Jun hurriedly led Zhang Feng to see the treasures that Zhang Feng had ordered. Li Qingxian and the others hurriedly followed. They wanted to see what Zhang Feng was up to, acting so mysteriously. However, when they came closer, they discovered that the semicircular object in Zhang Feng's hand was dug out from something that looked like a tree root. Not only that, there were 2 holes on it, and there were also some markings on it that looked like a ruler. Li Qingxian couldn't help but walk around Zhang Feng. He picked up a triangular ruler from the table and asked curiously, "Hey, Feng Zi, what is this thing?" At this moment, Zhang Feng felt some admiration for Qiao Jun. Although it wasn't an iron compass or a triangular ruler, it was exactly the same as the template that he had made. Zhang Feng couldn't help but be speechless. This thing is the teaching aid that I mentioned before. You don't recognize it? Li Qingxian's pupils constricted. Teaching aid? You want us to be carpenters? Qiao Jun's eyes lit up when he heard that. Although Li Qingxian and the others didn't know their identities, they looked quite extraordinary from the way they were dressed. Qiao Jun couldn't help but feel a little excited. Zhang Feng looked at Li Qingxian as if he was looking at an idiot. When did I say that I wanted you to be a carpenter? Do you think I want you to kill people just because I asked you to buy a knife? What are you thinking about? Li Qingxian heard that and finally calmed down. He waved the triangular ruler in his hand and said, "Then what is this thing for?" Qing Chimo wanted to play, but Li Qingxian glared at him and stopped. If he were to play with this thing, wouldn't it be ruined? Zhang Feng looked at the compass, triangular ruler, and other things one by one. He looked at Qiao Jun and said, "This thing is not bad. Make it according to this. If you can get some white paint on it, that would be even better. But it's okay, just follow this." Then, Zhang Feng looked at Li Qingxian and said, "Do you still remember how to calculate? This thing will be the main tool for calculation in the future. Do you want to ask, since you can memorize the multiplication and division table, what's the use of this thing?" Zhang Feng didn't wait for Li Qingxian to ask. Instead, he asked directly. Li Qingxian nodded. "Because what you have learned is just the tip of the iceberg." After that, Zhang Feng took out a blueprint from his chest and waved his hand to get Old Qiao and Cripple Wang to come closer. Zhang Wei, Li Qingxian, and the others instantly surrounded him. They saw Zhang Feng's blueprint. Blueprints of modern desks and benches were laid out on the paper. Zhang Feng looked at Qiao Jun and said, "How is it, Elder Qiao? Are you confident? Can you make this thing?" Qiao Jun and Cripple Wang both frowned and stared at the blueprint for a long time. Then, they said, "It's possible, but, no buts. Old Qiao, I will be in charge of the materials and you will be in charge of the mortise and tenon. How about that?" Cripple Wang patted Qiao Jun's shoulder with certainty. Qiao Jun thought for a while, then finally narrowed his eyes and nodded slowly. "Okay. Since Brother Wang has said so, then this old man would like to see if my Qiao family's men can rush out these tables and chairs within a month." Chapter 8:11. Deep in the Imperial Palace. Inside Li Yuan's palace. An old eunuch hurriedly entered Li Yuan's palace with a jade box in his hands. At this time, inside the palace, there were water wheels made with strange and ingenious skills placed all around. The rows of water wheels formed two winding lines, like a miniature version of mountains and rivers. In an instant, the stuffy and hot aura suddenly disappeared without a trace. In the front hall of the sleeping quarters, a dozen or so scantily clad women were currently singing and dancing on the waterside pavilion surrounded by water on all sides. And right above the waterside pavilion, Li Yuan was embracing four women, waving a golden poker on a high platform and killing in all directions. And as soon as the old eunuch entered, there were instantly 12 female guards carrying Modeo swords in their hands, blocking the old eunuch's path. The old eunuch hurriedly shouted, replying to the young masters, "This is a gift that His Highness the Crown Prince asked someone to bring from Shao Mountain to retired emperor. Please inform him." Actually, Li Yuan's personal old eunuch had already seen his arrival long ago. He deliberately delayed for a moment, then slowly walked forward, asking neither coldly nor warmly, "Eunuch Zhou, what are you here for?" The old eunuch who just came in hurriedly bowed and said, replying to Eunuch Ling, "This one is under the Crown Prince's orders to deliver a good toy to retired emperor." The Crown Prince brought it down from Shao Mountain. Hearing this, Eunuch Ling's pale eyebrows raised. He hurriedly took the jade box from Eunuch Zhou's hands, then waved his hand and said, "Wait." Then, he hurriedly bypassed the waterside pavilion, stepped into the pavilion on the second floor, and handed the jade box to Li Yuan. "Retired emperor, this is something that His Highness the Crown Prince brought down from Shao Mountain. Li Yuan, who was in high spirits, stopped playing cards when he heard Shao Mountain. He grabbed the jade box in Eunuch Ling's hands and asked with a face full of curiosity, "What is this?" Replying to retired emperor, "This servant does not know." Without waiting for Eunuch Ling to finish speaking, Li Yuan already opened the jade box with a click. Something from Shao Mountain, and sent by Li Qingxian, it should be a good thing without a doubt. But after Li Yuan opened the jade box, he was somewhat dazed. Only to see inside the jade box. Rows of white things as thick as a little finger were neatly lying inside. Li Yuan could not help but be stunned. "Eunuch Ling, where is the person who sent this thing?" "Waiting outside the hall." "Pass." Li Yuan was also not the least bit sloppy. He had seen this white paper a few days ago, and it was very comfortable for him. He was planning to go to Shao Mountain to take a look. How long had it been? What did this brat come up with again? Not long after, Eunuch Zhou bowed and followed Eunuch Ling forward. While smoking, Li Yuan walked out of the main hall. Without waiting for Li Yuan to walk out of the main hall, Li Qingxian's Hui commander had already appeared at the entrance of the main hall. Without waiting for the commander to kneel, Li Yuan asked anxiously, "Jin asks you, this thing, what did you Shernan and the others say?" Replying retired emperor, "It's not just Mr. Bashi and the others. Right now, everyone on the mountain is holding this thing in their mouths. They say that people who don't smoke don't have the ability. People who don't have the ability don't deserve to stay on the mountain." Chapter 8:12. Li Yuan carefully inquired about the situation of the people on the mountain. Even the matter of Gao Can and Li Qingxian getting drunk on cigarettes, as well as the blunder caused by Zhang Feng smoking for the first time, entered Li Yuan's ears. Li Yuan looked at the wisp of smoke rising in spirals from his hand, his eyes shining. "Good stuff, simply good stuff. We ask you, where does your majesty have it?" "Yes, the various dukes sent it to the imperial palace yesterday. However, the strength of yesterday's cigarette was too great. The crown prince felt that your majesty would not be able to bear it. As a result, when Prince Zhang's improved cigarette was produced today, the crown prince hurriedly ordered this lowly subordinate to deliver it to retired emperor immediately." At the beginning, Li Yuan was still somewhat annoyed. However, after hearing the imperial bodyguard commander say that the improved cigarette was delivered, his anger turned to joy. "Not bad, at least this fellow has a bit of conscience. Come. Eunuch Ling, distribute the cigarettes, one for each person. Accompany us to have a taste. This is the treasure of Mount E." Hearing this, the eyes of Li Yuan's concubines instantly brightened. Chattering, they surrounded Li Yuan. However, there were only 20 or so cigarettes in a box. Li Yuan personally lit a few cigarettes for the concubines, having them take turns smoking. Afterwards, the people at his side did the same. Soon, only 3 cigarettes remained in the box. However, Li Yuan was not afraid. Right now, he was the vice principal of Mount E. Anyone could have less of these cigarettes, but could he? The crowd held this novel toy, looking left and right. Immediately, amidst Li Yuan's loud laughter, the crowd coughed one after another. Just as the harem was in a state of chaos, the matter of Zhang Feng's cigarettes slowly spread throughout the imperial palace. Although these things were rare, there were always people who could obtain some from Mount E. Especially Miao Jinda and company. At this moment, in Taiji Palace, Zhang's son Wugo was in the middle of discussing something with Princess Changle. However, at this moment, a series of rustling sounds and strange smells came from outside the door, causing this dignified empress to instantly become angry. "Who is outside?" The noise outside immediately stopped. Afterwards, a series of kneeling sounds could be heard. Flustered eunuchs and palace maids hurriedly said, "Empress, no, nothing was done." Zhang's son Wugo frowned. "Come in and talk to me." As he spoke, he hugged Princess Changping, who was only a few years old, and looked coldly at the people who had just opened the door. As soon as everyone entered, they saw Zhang Sun and Wu Gou's gloomy and cold expression. They couldn't help but feel apprehensive in their hearts as they knelt on the ground before the two women. "Why were you waiting outside just now? What is this smell? Little Hua, what is that in your hand?" Zhang Sun and Wu Gou instantly saw the burning white thing that Xiao Hua hid behind him. It seemed to be very similar to the white paper that the emperor brought back. When little Hua heard this, his face turned pale. In reply to the empress, this is a cigarette, cigarettes? Empress Zhang Sun was a little puzzled. "Bring it up for me to take a look. Wasn't this something similar to incense? Where did this incense come from? Why use such expensive white paper?" Little Hua didn't dare to delay in the slightest. Although Empress Zhang Sun was an easygoing person, once she got angry, it wasn't something that ordinary people could endure. Little Gizi hurriedly handed the cigarette in his trembling hand to Zhang Sun and Wu Gou. After observing it closely, Empress Zhang Sun still couldn't understand the use of this thing. Empress Zhang Sun couldn't help but ask curiously, "Where did this thing come from?" "It's from the emperor." Xiao Huazi was so excited that he opened his mouth and gave Empress Zhang Sun a big fright. "What?" "It was given to this servant by the emperor's eunuch, little Gizi." Hearing this, Zhang Sun and Wu Gou let out a deep sigh of relief. "Tell me, where did this thing come from, and why would such expensive white paper be used for this thing? Tell me in detail." This empress naturally won't delve into it. "If you dare to lie, this empress will make your skin split open." How could little Hua endure this? In a panic, he spilled out everything. So this thing came from Mount E. The first person Zhang Sun and Wu Gou thought of was the guy she saw in the small tavern last time. Zhang Feng. Other than him, no one dared to waste white paper like this. And most importantly, this white paper was made by him. What else wouldn't he do? Little Hua confessed in full detail. Zhang Sun and Wu Gou couldn't help but frown. Nonsense. This is simply nonsense. Since when did the palace become so chaotic because of one thing? Empress, please forgive me. This humble one. Little Hua and the others turned pale with fright and repeatedly begged for mercy. Zhang Sun and Wu Gou smelled the smoke and threw the burning cigarette to little Hua in disgust. "From now on, in this empress bedroom, you're not allowed to smell this thing. Otherwise, this empress will hold you accountable. You can all leave." "Leave?" As if thinking of something, Zhang Sun and Wu Gou asked when they were about to be released, "Where is the emperor now?" Little Hua trembled when he heard this. In the imperial study. Prepare the imperial study." Chapter 8:13. In the imperial study. Li Shimin was lying on the soft couch with his clothes in a mess. Yu Qigong, Niu Jinda, Qing Yao Jin, and Qin Xiong were sitting on the benches next to him, smoking and bragging. They were talking about the interesting stories of Zhang Feng in the academy. Li Shimin laughed and said, "So, Fengzi's research institute is open just like that?" No one knew what Li Shimin was talking about. Niu Jinda couldn't help but ask in confusion, "Your Majesty, what is the research institute you're talking about?" You won't understand even if I tell you." But those craftsmen from the western regions came at the right time. "Dear Niu, tell me, what reward do you want?" Niu Jinda and the others were not fools. From the emperor's words just now, they could tell that something was amiss. Although they didn't know what the research institute was, when the emperor talked about these people, they instantly thought of something. When Niu Jinda heard this, he put the cigarette in his mouth and stood up. "Your Majesty, if you really want to reward me, why don't you give me Zhang Feng's first batch of firearms?" "No." Qing Yaojin's eyes turned red. "Your Majesty, there is no room for discussion. You promised me that when this thing came out, it would be in my barracks. Come on, the Emperor is talking about the invulnerable shield and spear. When did he say he would give you the guns?" "Yuchi old second, tell me, am I right?" Yuqigong touched his beard and slowly glanced at Niu Jinda. I seem to have forgotten what it is, but the emperor did talk about it that day in the imperial study. What a joke. The Chang and barracks was now his and Qing Yaojin's territory. The reason why they were stationed near Shao Mountain was that it was convenient. How could he let the meat that was about to enter his mouth slip away? Although they were brothers, there was no room for discussion on this matter. Li Shimin chuckled as he watched the three of them fight. At this time, he was already a little dizzy. If he hadn't gotten some tea leaves from Zhang Feng and drank them desperately, he might have already been drunk by the smoke. Everyone's faces were flushed red. Li Shimin chuckled and waved his hand to stop them. All right. The thing hasn't been produced yet. What are you guys fighting over? How about we talk about it after the blunderbuss are produced? By the way, Old Black, let me ask you something. Have you seen that Prince Jinla these days? Seeing that the emperor had suppressed this matter, although everyone felt indignant, they didn't dare to say anything. As Qing Yaojin smoked, he thought for a while and said, "That kid has been strolling outside Shao Mountain these days. I don't know what he wants to do. Your Majesty, do you want me to send someone to bring him back to Honglu Temple? Besides, he has been in the Tang dynasty for a long time. Should we send him back?" No. Li Shimin waved his hand. At this time, Jin La's situation is still unclear. If I drive him back now, the cunning King Jin La may misunderstand that I won't help them. This is not good for the Tang dynasty. Forget it. It seems that he wants to go to Fengzi's academy. Just turn a blind eye and let him in. As for the rest, let Zhang Feng take care of it. Okay. When Qing Yaojin heard this, he sat back down resentfully. Your Majesty is really in a good mood. At this time, Empress Jiangsu's somewhat angry voice sounded at the door. As the voice sounded, Shao Gizi helplessly pushed open the door of the imperial study. As soon as the door was pushed open, Zhang Sun and Wu Go were instantly choked by the choking smoke and coughed. Li Shimin and others were shocked. Li Shimin waved his hand to signal them to leave and hurried to greet them. Maid Guanyin, why didn't you tell me you were coming? Although it was said to Zhang Sun and Wu Go, how could Shao Gizi not know that it was a reproach? He hurried to explain. Zhang Sun and Wu Go glared at Li Shimin speechlessly and said, "If I didn't come, second brother would probably set the entire imperial study on fire." Hearing this, Li Shimin glanced at the smoky imperial study and felt a slight headache. Maid Guanyin, let's talk somewhere else. Shao Gizi, let's go to the bedroom. While speaking, Li Shimin followed Zhang Sun and Wu Go. Along the way, Zhang Sun and Wu Go were very annoyed. It was full of the smell of smoke. Even the eunuchs they met along the way smelled like this. It was not that she hated this smell. It was that the smell of this thing was simply too unpleasant. It was uncomfortable. Your Majesty, this thing smells so bad. Why is it that all I see, smell, and hear along the way is this? What's so good about this thing? Seeing Empress Jiangsun grumble. Only then did Li Shimin realize something. He smiled faintly and said, "This thing was made by that brat Zhang Feng." You don't say, this thing is really magical. Before this, I had to take a nap at noon every day, and I would have a headache every night. But now that I have this thing, I feel 100 times more energetic. Chapter 8:14. Zhang Sun Wu Go rolled her eyes at Li Shimin. I don't think this thing should be made. I don't know what Zhang Feng is doing. In my opinion, this thing is a scourge. Look at you. Do you still look like an emperor? As soon as they entered the bedroom. Only then did Zhang Sun Wu Go help Li Shimin take off his outer robe as he nagged. Li Shimin laughed and hugged Zhang Sun Wu Go. Guanyin, you don't know. It's this little thing. You don't know that everyone on Shao Mountain is smoking it now. There's even a rumor that people who don't smoke aren't men. There's also a ballad that says that a person who doesn't smoke isn't a man. There's also a ballad that says that a cigarette before a meal is a celestial being and a cigarette after a meal is a joyful life. Seeing that Zhang Sun Wugo was about to refute, Li Shimin hurriedly said, "Do you still remember Mr. Bosher and the others?" Zhang Sun Wugo didn't know what to say. She glared at Li Shimin and leaned into his arms. However, in the next moment, Zhang Sun Wugo pushed Li Shimin away in disgust and covered her nose as she retreated. Li Shimin was amused by Zhang Sun Wugo's seductive behavior and laughed. He sat on the soft couch and said, "Since Mr. Bosher and Dr. Sun came to Shao Mountain, the pork, which is hated by scholars like them, has become a necessity for their meals. Moreover, in Chang'an City, the restaurant opened by Qingxian and the others is selling pork very well, and the people who eat it the most are those Confucians. Don't you think it's funny?" Zhang Sun Wugo saw that Li Shimin had changed the topic, so she couldn't continue to hold on to it. Sitting next to Li Shimin, she asked, "This boy's pork is good. I don't know how he made it. Did he develop it together with Dr. Sun?" This concubine once asked the imperial physicians in the palace, and they said that a lot of Chinese herbs were added to the braised meat. Wrong, this thing was made by Feng Zi. If Dr. Sun could make this thing, he would have done it long ago. Li Shimin smacked his lips. He waved his hand and rushed out, shouting at the door, "Little Gizi, order Imperial Chef Zhou to quickly bring the braised meat to Zhen." At the mention of braised meat, Li Shimin felt hungry. He said with some admiration, "Once the pork was sold, the pigs that I was worried about to be harvested to fight against the plague of locusts all became treasures. Not only did I not suffer a loss, but I also earned a lot of money just like this kid said." "Are you talking about the tens of millions of pigs that have troubled you for a long time?" Zhang Sun and Wugo were also surprised. But when he thought about it, he couldn't help but be slightly shocked. Did this kid just casually deal with the matter that he had mentioned before the locust outbreak? Could it be that this kid knew about the locust plague from the very beginning? Furthermore, he already knew how to make braised meat? Then, second brother, then, the beggar's chicken. At the mention of the beggar's chicken, Li Shimin was even more excited. Wasn't Zhen having a headache about those things before? Now, with this kid doing this, the shortage of food in the military camp mainly depends on selling these chickens and ducks that no one wants in exchange. Zhen just talked about this with Yu Qigong and the others. I didn't expect that they would make a lot of money because of this. Li Shimin praised Zhang Feng from head to toe. In fact, to put it bluntly, he was just looking for an excuse for this cigarette. Although this thing was a bad thing in the eyes of many people, especially women, it seemed that they were not fated with this thing. However, this was all secondary. The most important thing was that Li Shimin also found that this thing was very dependent on it, just like wine. He didn't know whether it was good or bad, but he didn't want to make Empress Zhangsun unhappy because of this thing. That was why he made a big fuss. How could Zhangsun Wugo not know that Li Shimin was beating around the bush? After fiercely glaring at Li Shimin, she said, "Is second brother looking for an excuse for this cigarette? Although this thing is good, this concubine always feels dizzy from smelling it. I hope second brother takes care of your imperial body. Although this thing is good, there is no need to be like today, right? It's better to smoke less. Save it, save it." Hearing this, Li Shimin was very happy. He took out an exquisite jade box from his bosom, took out a cigarette, and put it in his mouth. Seeing this, Zhangsun Wugo's face turned completely black. "This concubine is not feeling well and won't accompany your majesty." As she spoke, Zhangsun Wugo pulled Princess Changle and fled from here. Li Shimin stared blankly. Seeing Changle's face full of disdain, he doubtfully asked himself, "Is this thing really so smelly?" On the other side, Qing Yao Jin and company left the imperial study. They did not even sit in the palanquin. Along the way, they enjoyed the beautiful scenery of the imperial palace. With cigarettes in their mouths, they chatted and laughed as they walked out of the palace, swaggering down the streets of Chang'an. Now that Zhang Feng had gone to Mount Shao, there was no need for them to disguise themselves. They only wore ordinary clothes and strolled around the streets. "Old Hey, your son's restaurant is up ahead. Aren't you going to invite me to eat a bowl? When the group passed by Ping and District in the Eastern Market, Yu Qigong stood motionless. Hearing this, Niu Jindai and Qin Shubao could not help but rub their stomachs. Feigning astonishment, they asked, "Old He, when did your son know how to do business and open a restaurant? Come, come, come. Let's go sit." How could Qing Yaojin say anything? Seeing the restaurant's signboard, he could not move. Seeing this, he waved his hand and said, "What are you talking about?" Chapter 8:15. What did you say? This is the son-in-law's doing? Zhang Mansion. Zhang Shan looked at the box of cigarettes handed to him by the old Xiaotsai in surprise. The old Xiaotsai stroked his beard and sipped his tea leisurely. He smiled and said, "Of course it's him. I don't know what this brat is doing on the mountain. Yu Shernan and the other old guys don't care about him. But this is really good stuff. Feng Zi was too busy before and didn't have time. This morning, he just remembered and sent me some to give to you." How could Zhang Feng think of his cheap father-in-law? He really just remembered Chang and university this morning. If Li Qingxian hadn't mentioned it during breakfast, Zhang Feng wouldn't have remembered anything. Now that Li Qingxian mentioned it, he remembered and hurriedly asked the people in Tonghui Fang to make a large batch of cigarettes. He sent a big box of cigarettes to Li Gang and the old Xiaotsai. While Qing Chimo was smoking one cigarette after another, Yi Qianqian's eyes lit up. The old Xiaotsai was so angry that he picked up the broom and chased Qing Chimo out. Then, the two old men followed Qing Chimo's example and squatted in the study. After smoking for 2 hours, they realized that the thing that Bo Shi loved so much was really good stuff. But this time, the old Xiaotsai was not happy. He looked at the braised meat and beer on the table while smoking. He sighed and said, "Alas. I don't know what this old village chief is doing. If this goes on, Feng Zi's ability will be ruined by these scammers." Li Gang waved the white paper in his hand and looked at it. He exhaled a puff of white smoke and said, "Old man, this thing is really good stuff. Although this brat has a tendency to be a prodigal, you also know that pigs and chickens and ducks are a big burden to the Tang dynasty now. This brat solved this problem in an instant. This can be considered a matter that will be passed down in the Zhang family for hundreds of generations." When he heard the Zhang family, only then did the old Xiaotsai remember Zhang Feng's father-in-law. He took out a big handful from the basket, and then put down half of it with some heartache. Finally, he thought for a while, and then took out a large bamboo tube and put 2 bamboo tubes in it. Only then did he slowly walk out of the academy while smoking. At this moment, Zhang Shan interrupted the old scholar's imagination and asked curiously, "This thing, you've tried it before?" The old scholar didn't say anything. Instead, he took out a wooden box from his bosom and took out 2 cigarettes, one for each of them. He lit the cigarettes and said, "Yes, I have. And you know Dr. Sun and Mr. Bo Shi, don't you?" The few people on the mountain had all gotten their hands on it, and they loved it so much that they couldn't bear to part with it. "Hey. I've also heard that anyone who doesn't smoke on the mountain is treated as a monster. They even say, no cigarettes, no alcohol, no hard work, but as long as there are cigarettes, alcohol, and books are common." What kind of nonsense was that? Was this thing really that good? Zhang Shan could not help but look suspiciously at the smoking device. It was like the incense of his ancestors. It was a little strange. But at this moment, he couldn't say anything. He could only follow the old Xiaotsai and smoke. But the old Xiaotsai was more careful and told him over and over again how to smoke without choking his lungs. Slowly. Slowly. Zhang Shan was surprised to find that this thing was really good. After all, he was a businessman. What happened to paper had already made his heart ache. And that pork and other things. He secretly cursed Zhang Feng for being a wastrel. But after all, they hadn't really become in-laws, so he could only shake his head and sigh. On the one hand, he thought about the benefits of Zhang Feng's actions. Otherwise, he would have vomited blood because of Zhang Feng. But now that he met the old Xiaotsai, Zhang Shan couldn't help but ask with a worried face, "Old Xiaotsai, I can see that you treat Feng as your own son, right?" Hearing this, the old Xiaotsai's face became serious. "Nonsense. Old man cherishes talent." But as soon as he finished speaking, the old Xiaotsai shook his head and sighed again. In fact, in his heart, Zhang Feng had long been treated as his own son. But he also knew that with Zhang Feng's temper, he would definitely be unwilling. But he also didn't want to see Zhang Feng's talent go to waste. But since he met Li Yuan and Li Shimin, he realized that he was overthinking. Zhang Feng's achievements would only be in existence that he could only look up to in the future. After Zhang Feng opened White Deer College on the mountain, the old Xiaotsai buried his thoughts in the bottom of his heart. He believed that with these people around, Zhang Feng would generally be fine. But who would have thought that Feng, this silly boy, would give everything to others? In the future, when he got married and started his own business, what else would he pass on to his descendants? When the old Xiaotsai thought about this, the vicissitudes of life in his eyes became more obvious. Alas! Old man Zhang, don't make fun of this old man. Right, let's not talk about this anymore. Tomorrow, old man will go up the mountain to ask Feng Zi what he's doing. Don't worry, this old man knows that Feng Zi has a lot of skills. Don't worry, you can take this first. If there's no more, you can send someone to my academy. Or don't you have people in the market square of Mount Shao? Let them find the old village chief. Now, Feng Zi has given all this to the old village chief. Zhang Shan smacked his lips. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he swallowed his words. He sighed and said, "I'm old. I didn't want to get involved in the affairs of young people. But you know, my daughter seems to have lost her soul after seeing that kid." Yuqi Gong had a side relative. After the Tang dynasty was established, Li Yuan dispersed the family power of all the officials in order to disperse the power in the court. As for Yuqi Gong's side branch, they naturally chose the wealthy Jiangnan generation. After not seeing each other for a few years, if Yuqi Gong hadn't joked with Zhang Feng about having a girl, he would have forgotten about this cousin. Afterwards, he returned to discuss Zhang Feng's marriage with his wife. The two hit it off and quickly sent a letter to Yuqi Gong's uncle. This girl was a side branch of Yuqi Gong's great-grandfather, Yuqi Meng. She was also the only daughter of Yuqi Gong's paternal uncle, Yuqi Meng. These years, their development in Jiangnan could be considered quite effective, even more so than Yuqi Gong's branch. However, although their lives were good, they were unable to enter the world. Last year, Yuqi Gong had received a letter from his paternal uncle, Yuqi Meng, who wanted to find a marriage for Yuqi Meng's only daughter. Thinking about it this way, Yuqi Gong couldn't help but feel that Zhang Feng was full of merits. Although he had an engagement, as a man, which man didn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Moreover, this kid had saved the emperor's favor and called him brother. In the future, when a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to the heavens. This was a small matter. His Yuqi clan would also be able to benefit from this. Hu told him to have many sons, but most of them were disappointing. Although he rarely interacted with Yuqi Meng, he didn't know if this cousin of his was still as thin as a stick of firewood after not seeing her for a few years. But seeing her today, Yuqi Gong almost cried out in surprise. He had seen at least 800 if not 1,000 women. Among them, he had seen blonde-haired and blue-eyed Hu people, as well as those smelly extraterrestrials. But seeing her now, Yuchi Gong's heart instantly blossomed. This was great. When Yuchi Lan arrived, it would be strange if that kid didn't fall under her pomegranate skirt. Yuchi Lan wasn't as cold and aloof as Jingshu, nor was she like Zhang Yuyao, a pretty girl from a humble family. Instead, she had the fatal charm of a Hu person. She was charming and had a graceful and noble temperament. No one could compare to her in this aspect. While Yuchi Gong was stroking his beard and smiling foolishly, the group had already entered the drawing room. Only then did Yuchi Lan bow slightly. Lan greets cousin. It's been many years, but cousin is still so valiant. I was wondering where my jug of wine had gone. If I don't hide, how are you going to entertain Lan today? Come, Lan, let's eat. Ignore him. Madame Yuchi poured wine for Yuchi Lan, and asked, Lan, if sister-in-law remembers correctly, you're already 18 years old this year, right? This was the first time Yuchi Lan had seen this kind of wine that was as clear as water, yet fragrant and sweet. She was a little surprised, but when she heard Madame Yuchi's question, she smiled faintly and said, Madame Yuchi really has a good memory. When Madame Yuchi heard this, she smiled and glanced at Yuchi Lan's chest that was twice as big as a normal person's. She nodded in satisfaction. Come, let's drink. This is something that only our residence has for now. It's hard to say whether the other public houses and the imperial palace have it or not. You don't know, but this wine was also made by that kid Zhang Feng. But, didn't you say that the beer was made by him? This. Sigh. How long ago was that? When we go up the mountain tomorrow, I'll teach you a good lesson about that silly kid Zhang Feng. Come, let's eat first. We'll talk after dinner. That kid knows things that you can't even imagine. This time, I'll tell you this much, but there's one thing that depends on you. Although that kid is only a viscount now, he's still the chancellor of White Deer College. But I can guarantee with my head that the number of ladies who have their eyes on that kid can line up from here all the way to Mount Shao. Yuchi Lan still believed in this point. However, at this moment, she had a better understanding of Zhang Feng's talent and knowledge. She couldn't help but be more eager to see what kind of person Zhang Feng was. Report. At this moment, someone rushed into the living room and whispered something in Yuchi Gong's ear. Yuchi Gong's expression changed abruptly. Oh no. Hearing this, Yuchi Lan and Madame Yuchi turned pale with fright. What's the matter? What happened? After Yuchi Gong waved his hand to dismiss the person who came, he said in a serious tone, Do you still remember that kid's confidant? And his fiancée? Now, these two girls have become sisters. Tomorrow, the old scholar from Chang and University actually asked them to go up the mountain to take care of Zhang Feng's daily life. Madame Yuchi became anxious when she heard this. She grabbed Yuchi Lan's hand and said, Come, let's go up the mountain now. Chapter 820. Shiva was miserable. He walked around the foot of Shao Mountain for a long time but still didn't get permission to go up the mountain. However, Shiva didn't get tired of it. He would wait here for a long time every day. When he was hungry, he would ask the passers-by to buy some food for him. When he was sleepy, he built a straw shed on the spot and asked someone to buy some things for him to stay in. Although it was a little bitter. Seeing the endless stream of people going up the mountain every day and listening to them talk about the rumors on the mountain made him very happy. Shiva was even more eager to go up the mountain. The fatal attraction of Zhang Feng made Shiva forget his identity as Prince Jinla. Before, he thought that Prince Jinla was a high and mighty existence. However, after meeting Zhang Feng, he suddenly felt that Prince Jinla was nothing. Even his father, the emperor, couldn't be compared to him. Of course, he didn't dare to say these words in front of others. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to keep his legs when he went back. However, he didn't care anymore. As long as he could go up the mountain, he wouldn't go back to Jinla. Go back to your second uncle. He wouldn't go back. It was because Zhang Feng had come up with another good thing after the white paper and the braised beggar's chicken. After spending a lot of money to get a cigarette from old he, Shiva was completely lost. At this time, after waiting for the people in line to enter the market to go in, Shiva tidied up his clothes and even clutched the gold leaf that he had prepared. He planned to bribe the guards to let him go up the mountain. Oh, isn't this the little prince of Jinla? Why do you want to try again today? Ha ha ha. Amidst the guards joking, Shiva used the unfamiliar Han etiquette to salute and say, "Officers, this one is truly an old acquaintance of Principal Zhang. I'll have to trouble you to pass on the message. Can this be considered as a gift for the officers?" The guard glanced at the bulging money bag in Shiva's hand before withdrawing his eyes. He then looked at Shiva and said with a smile on his face, "You don't look like a troublemaker. Since you're so sincere and have become familiar with us these days, I'll let you in. However, if you dare to make trouble on the mountain and make things difficult for us, I'll break your legs even if you're King La, not to mention your Prince La." Shiva looked at the guards as if he was dreaming. It had been 7 days. They all said the same thing. However, these people refused to let him in. They said that this was the secret place of the Tang dynasty and that non-Han people were not allowed to enter. However, a few days ago, he saw a group of people from the western region enter with his own eyes. Although those people were handcuffed and shackled, they all went in except for him. After a while, he said strangely, "Kid, give me a cigarette." "Let me tell you, where does Shiwa have a cigarette?" He hurriedly took out a golden leaf from his money pouch. The barbarian merchant looked around like a thief before putting the leaf into his sleeve as if nothing had happened. "Kid, on Shao Mountain, if you don't smoke, you're not a man. Do you understand? Those who don't have cigarettes don't deserve to stay on Shao Mountain. Brother, let me give you a piece of advice. There's a shop in front of the food factory that specializes in selling cigarettes. Go buy a box. Otherwise, if you stay too long, you'll drown in the spit." Chapter 8:21. There's such a rule? Shiva was shocked and quickly asked again, "Brother, who set this rule? When I met the dean, he didn't seem like such a person." When the barbarian heard that this dumb kid knew Zhang Feng, he couldn't help but be shocked. After looking Shiva up and down, he said in disbelief, "You know the dean?" "We all know the dean. A few days ago, Lao Tzu and I even talked to the dean." "So what?" "This rule wasn't set by the dean. It was set by everyone here. Also, don't ever throw trash on the ground. If someone sees it." Shiva hurriedly asked, "What will happen?" "Hee hee." The barbarian laughed evilly. "You'll have to use your tongue to lick the entire floor before you stop." Shiva was shocked. "What kind of rule is this? This isn't a rule." The barbarian pointed at the ground and said, "Do you know what this is? This is the cement that the dean spent a lot of effort to create. It's also called concrete. It's for the convenience of us. They didn't even have it on the mountain, but they made it for us first. What is this? If we don't follow the rules, not to mention the people on the mountain, even the merchants here will beat those who don't follow the rules to death." This, Shiva was completely shocked. He had seen Zhang Feng's charm. But what was this? Zhang Feng didn't say a word. These people were so crazy to follow the rules and even set their own rules to restrict them. No wonder the people here were like this. This was the kind of bearing a man should have. Shiva's eyes shone with a fiery light. After thanking the Hu merchant, he trembled as he walked towards the entrance of the sect. The barbarian smacked his lips and glanced at Shiva. He touched the golden leaf in his embroidered robe and laughed. "Another dumb rich man. Do you think it's so easy to climb this mountain? The people in the market were very law-abiding. In the past, they still needed people to maintain law and order. However, since Zhang Feng built 2 commercial streets for the people here, the people who used to maintain law and order here had long disappeared. Don't ask why. Where was this place? This is a mountain. Who dared to disobey the rules here? How could this place tolerate him? The only reason he didn't kill him was because of the dean's magnanimity. After bidding farewell to the barbarian merchant, Shiva wandered around the market. He first went to the entrance of the food factory and spent 10 copper coins to buy 10 cigarettes. Only then did he have an idea of what to do. Looking at the winding cement road that led to the top of the mountain, as well as the 30 feet wide mountain gate that was built between the food factory and another mountain valley, he couldn't help but feel even more shocked. The mountain gate was very casual. 2 huge rocks that were about 5 zhang tall had been peeled off from the mountain and leaned against each other. They were then reinforced with bricks and cement to make the mountain gate. Li Qingxian didn't know that Zhang Feng had returned at this time. He hurriedly took off his sunglasses and pointed at Qing Chimo. It's him. I was just about to come over. This guy stole it. Zhang Feng heard this and looked at everyone. At this time, Wei Shuyu, Niu Jinda's son, Niu Jianhu, and the others pointed at Qing Chimo. Even the Yuqi brothers who had always been on his side betrayed Qing Chimo. Qing Chimo couldn't help but feel a headache coming on. Fengzi, listen to me. This matter is really not what you think. Let me ask you. I heard that someone has been sitting on a pole all day these 2 days, wearing sunglasses and patrolling the construction site. Don't tell me it's you. Zhang Feng stared at Qing Chimo and asked. Qing Chimo's expression froze. Which bastard is it that's barking everywhere? Qing Chimo's eyes flickered as he defended himself. Fengzi, don't believe in rumors. These are all rumors. Lao Tzu, no, when did I do this? Zhang Feng rolled his eyes. Don't try to quibble. This is what Mr. Bosher said. Is there anything wrong with that? Although Mr. Bosher didn't name anyone, it's undoubtedly you. Qing Chimo still wanted to quibble, but Zhang Feng had already said it. What else could he say? Go and beat up Mr. Bosher? He really dared to. Even before his fist landed, his father would dare to chop him up with a knife. Qing Chimo couldn't help but cower. Zhang Feng was so angry that he wanted to punch someone. This kind of atmosphere couldn't be encouraged. Otherwise, when everyone followed the trend, what would happen on the mountain? That's enough. From now on, no palanquins are allowed on the mountain. Unless you're too sick to walk, or you're as old as Mr. Bosher, no one is allowed to sit on it. I'll leave this matter to Li Gan. If anyone dares to sit on it, he'll be sent down the mountain to slaughter pigs. Qing Chimo knew that Zhang Feng didn't say anything and instantly beamed with joy. However, Zhang Feng's next sentence made him fall to the bottom of the valley. It seems like you've been too strong recently. Alright, I've already arranged for someone to inform old Niu. Tomorrow, you'll go to the military camp at the foot of the mountain. I heard that General Qing Yaojin is doing some military training I mentioned before. You'll go and train for a month, or you can go home directly. Qing Chimo's expression changed drastically when he heard this. He had been to his father's military camp. Zhang Feng had created those perverted toys that tortured the experts to the point of wanting to die. It was known as the torture in the military camp that was more painful than being in the water prison. How could he go? Wasn't this asking him to go? Qing Chimo couldn't help but grab Zhang Feng and burst into tears. Fengzi, we're brothers. Why do you have to make things difficult for me? However, when he thought of Zhang Feng's previous rule, 2 streams of tears flowed out of his eyes. When Zhang Feng saw this, his heart softened. Go, go. If you want that thing, go with Iron Bull. When you come back every night, Lao Tzu will teach you more advanced things. When everyone heard this, they could not help but widen their eyes. Zhang Feng was actually going to impart private training. Everyone knew that Zhang Feng's book on the art of war and the training method were only half of it. This kid was unwilling to take out anything more precious. Now, he was going to impart them to Qingchimo. Yuchi Baolin and his brother hurriedly said, Fengzi, I want to go. I'm not afraid of hardships. I'll go. I'll go too. Fengzi, I'll go. Me, I'll go. At this moment, Wei Shuyu and the others' eyes almost popped out. They were all fighting to be the last. Only then did Qingchimo realize it. He was about to hug Wei Shuyu's leg again, but Wei Shuyu and Zhang Sun each sent him flying with a kick. Fengzi, I didn't say I'm not going. Qingchimo wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Zhang Feng looked at everyone with satisfaction and said, Don't worry. Gao Can, Iron Bull, Niu Xiaohu, and Yu Lin, the three of you go first. Otherwise, if everyone else leaves, we can't stay on this mountain. Hearing this, the few people who were named by Zhang Feng cheered, but Wei Shuyu and the others were regretting it. Go, go, get out of here now. When Zhang Feng saw that these people had gone crazy, he hurriedly threw them out. After they ran away while wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves, Zhang Feng then sneakily took out a wooden box from his bosom and threw one to each of them. Come, I have a lot of this. One for each of you. Here. Everyone opened the box curiously and saw that there were brand new sunglasses lying inside. They could not help but be excited. But why would Wei Shuyu and the others care about this? They hurriedly asked, Fengzi, the custom-made weapons you mentioned. Hearing this, Wei Shuyu and the others almost hugged Zhang Feng and kissed him. Seeing this, Zhang Feng hurriedly begged for mercy. Everyone has one. I'll give you a surprise during the new year. Don't worry now. This thing can't be made in a short period of time. When I have time, I'll tailor it for you, okay? At this moment, Qingchimo returned and said, Oh no, Fengzi, the fool you tricked before is here again. He's here to cause trouble. But when he saw that someone was going to be in trouble, Qingchimo became excited. At this time, Li Qingxian and the others were sitting still in the room. They looked straight ahead and smoked their cigarettes. Originally, Zhang Feng wanted to greet them and introduce them to each other. But when he saw that they were all acting cool, he was too lazy to do so. Glancing at Shiva's bulging money bag, Zhang Feng smiled even more happily. Why are you here from so far away? I heard that Jinla is in big trouble now, is that right? What's going on? Is it serious? Shiva's face turned bitter when he heard that. That was one of the reasons why he was here. Brother Zhang Feng, you don't know. I don't know what's wrong with that D*MN India. They mobilized an army of 300,000 to invade Jinla. To be honest, Jinla is suffering. Zhang Feng heard that and nodded. That's right. That D*MN India. If I had an army of 100,000, no, 50,000 people, I would definitely lead them to fight for you. But I'm just a weak scholar. Weak scholar, Li Qingxian and the others were so embarrassed that they almost died of cancer. Are you worthy? Shiva became even more agitated when he heard that. Brother Zhang. These words of yours are enough. I came to the Great Tang precisely to seek the assistance of His Majesty, the wise and mighty Emperor. Shiva glanced at Li Qingxian as he spoke. Li Qingxian pretended not to see it. Shiva continued, but 10 days have passed, and I still haven't seen any response from the Tang dynasty. I'm worried that if this drags on, Jinla will be destroyed. Brother Zhang, you have a lot of ideas. can you give Jinla a way out? As he spoke, Shiva hurriedly placed the money pouch with the golden leaves on the tea table beside Zhang Feng. Zhang Feng glanced at it and pretended to be angry. What are you doing? Take it back. We're brothers. We should help each other. When Shiva heard this, he really thought that Zhang Feng was incorruptible, so he pretended to take back the money bag. However, before he could grab the money bag, Zhang Feng said, "But seeing how sincere you are, I'll kindly accept it." Li Qingxian wanted to beat him up. Niu Jianhu and Yuqi Baoqi had never seen this side of Zhang Feng. In the past, he had always heard about how awesome Zhang Feng was, but now, what was this? Wasn't this AF** King Street Thug? Was this still the legendary awesome Zhang Feng? Think about it, both Tubo, India, and Tubo were affected by the locusts, and they mobilized 300,000 people? If their stomachs weren't full, why would they mobilize so many people? When Shiva heard that, he couldn't help but frown and think for a while. Then, he nodded. Zhang Feng took a puff of his cigarette, crossed his legs, and said, "Let's talk about other things. You're Prince Jinla, so you should have countless spies in the country, right? You should know the actual number of soldiers in India, and you should also know about this disaster. Why did he suddenly put pressure on Jinla? But how long has it been, and he's still slowly nibbling away at the border? If he really had 300,000 soldiers, he would only need 5 days to destroy you. But think about it, why didn't he do that?" When Shiva heard that, his face turned pale. Zhang Feng was right. That was really the case. Shiva couldn't help but ask again, "Brother Zhang, what does India mean? So you're saying that 200,000 of these 300,000 people are Turks?" Zhang Feng nodded. He took out a piece of white paper, then took out a bamboo stick, burned it in the oil lamp, and drew a map on the paper. "Look, this is your Jinla. On the top is the Tang dynasty. Who's on the left? On the left is Tubo. Now that there's internal strife in Tubo, and your Jinla encountered this problem, the Turks mobilized their troops again. But the Tang dynasty's Long Yu Dao is fine now. Why is that?" Shiva stared at the map and fell into deep thought. Li Qingxian and the others finally couldn't pretend anymore. They also came forward. Zhang Feng waved his hand and asked everyone to come closer. Then, he poked the bamboo stick in his hand on the 2 words, Tang dynasty, and said, "It's because they don't know who the Tang dynasty is helping. So, they don't dare to start a full-scale war. That's why I said you don't have to worry. With the Tang dynasty around, India really doesn't dare to make a move. Now, who doesn't know that Jinla is under the protection of the Tang dynasty? If they dare to make a move, they have to consider the revenge of the Tang dynasty. And to be honest, the Tang dynasty has already mobilized their army." The Tang dynasty has already mobilized? Why didn't I know? Shiva was completely stunned by Zhang Feng's words. He hurriedly asked, "Brother Zhang, this is a serious matter. Please don't joke about it." Chapter 828. Yu Shinan was very excited these days. But he also had a headache. Facing the reprimands from countless Confucian scholars, Zhang Feng's letter, and the fact that this kid was not doing his job. He was tinkering with something in the forging workshop all day long. Finally, the matter of the white paper was settled. They didn't see him again. They drank tea, looked at the waterfall in the distance, recited poems, and touched the white paper with a smile. From time to time, they even dipped it in their mouths. Then, they let out a satisfied sigh of admiration. It was as if the white paper was very fragrant. At this moment, in front of the bamboo house, Li Qingxian's voice slowly sounded, and they couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Student Li Qingxian greets the gentleman. Li Qingxian still paid attention to etiquette. When there was no one around, he had the image of an elegant young master. Yu Shinan and the others nodded in satisfaction. Get up, sit. Li Qingxian didn't stand on ceremony. After sitting down, Yu Shinan asked again, looking at your face, did that kid cause some trouble again? Li Qingxian's face twitched. He wanted to say something, but now he couldn't say anything at all. He hurriedly said, what are you saying? Nothing happened to Fengzi, but... Seeing that Li Qingxian was hemming and hawing, Ouyang Sun glanced at him. He knocked on the small stove and said, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't hem and haw. He was just short of saying, you are the crown prince, you have to pay attention to your royal appearance. Li Qingxian also understood the meaning of their words. He couldn't help but touch his nose and said, just now, the crown prince of Jinla, Shiva, went up the mountain. Oh, isn't it just a little crown prince? Ouyang Sun was about to say something, but seemed to have thought of something. He looked up at Li Qingxian in surprise and said, don't tell old man that the crown prince also knows Zhang Feng. Hearing this, Sun Simiao, Chu Suiliang, and the others also looked up in surprise and stared at Li Qingxian. As far as he knew, one of them was a slacker in the marketplace who had just left his home and wanted to start a business, while the other was a prince from another clan. How could the two of them have crossed paths? Li Qingxian also recounted the strange experience of the two to everyone in detail. Involuntarily, the faces of Ouyang Sun and the others were incomparably colorful. So this brat is actually a big swindler? This. I can't be deceived. Of all the things this kid can do, he just has to do it. Alright, no one is perfect. Don't be so harsh on him. After all, this kid is also very good. Sun Simiao hurriedly stood up to smooth things over. Only then did they stop criticizing Zhang Feng. Sun Simiao then asked, then this time, did Shiwa come up the mountain because of Zhenla being surrounded? If it's really just for this, it's fine. Do you really think that I, Zhang Feng, have never seen the world? This time, Prince Zhenla is here. I don't know what he's here for. He's just here to be a minister. If all the ministers are so stingy, it's really hard for them to be successful. Zhang Feng also understood their thoughts. However, if they were all so selfish, how could the Tang dynasty flourish? Respected teachers, I feel that you're exaggerating a little. Actually, this matter isn't as serious as you've described it to be. Is this not serious? Ouyang Sun's hot temper rose again. He stood up with a swoosh and stared at Zhang Feng. However, Zhang Feng ignored him and said, trust me, teacher. Calm down first. Can you let me say 1, 2, 3, and then you can think about it? Trust me. Calm down first. Let's see what this guy has to say. How about it? Yu Shinan and Sun Simiao hurriedly tried to persuade him as well. A moment later, Ouyang Sun angrily said, if you want to say it, then say it quickly. Hearing this, Zhang Feng said, in fact, you should have seen that the Tang dynasty is getting stronger day by day. Previously, countries as strong as the Turks can only play tricks to test the Tang dynasty. And this little one feels that this sort of probing will continue for a very, very long time. Even Tibet has submitted to become a vassal of my great Tang, so what of the surrounding small countries? For example, Goguryeo, Shirwei, Hui, and so on. For example, it's like a bandit's nest. Does the bandit leader only care about his own pleasure and not, forget it? I'll change the metaphor. Zhang Feng shrunk his neck under Ouyang Sun's murderous gaze and hurriedly changed the topic. Take a wolf pack for example. The strength of a wolf pack does not represent the strength of the entire wolf pack. The strength of a wolf pack depends on how the wolf king distributes the food equally. If the wolf king in the wolf pack only cares about itself, then the wolves around it will become fewer and fewer. In the end, it will be the only one left fighting alone. At that time, even if it sees a bountiful prey, no matter how good the hunting opportunity is, it will only sigh. Although the Tang dynasty is strong now, it is still only temporary. The people who rely on the Tang dynasty all hope to be sheltered and learn something. Then, when they become stronger, the Tang dynasty will get more rewards. In this way, a huge net of interests will be formed. Then, who can defeat the Tang dynasty? Chapter 830. Zhang Feng's mouth flew up and down, and Ouyang Sun was really confused. Sometimes he frowned and thought deeply, and sometimes he gasped. Anyway, he felt that something was wrong. Yu Shinan and the others were the same at this time, but they were slightly better than Ouyang Sun. They could feel that Zhang Feng's mouth could even bring the dead back to life. Li Qingxian, who was standing at the door, was deeply shocked at this time. He felt that what Zhang Feng said now was reasonable, but in the end, he couldn't help but exclaim, "Fengzi, you are talking about the way to govern a country?" As soon as Li Qingxian's voice sounded, Ouyang Sun was instantly shocked and understood. "Fengzi, is what he said true?" Zhang Feng nodded. "You can say that, but these things are all universal." "So, Mr. Xianben, do you think what I said is right?" Ouyang Sun's face couldn't help but become serious. "National policy, this is national policy, how does this kid know so much?" Ouyang Sun couldn't help but anxiously walk around in the room, with his hands behind his back. After a while, he asked, "Fengzi, old man, ask you, this thing, other than here, who else have you told?" Zhang Feng was stunned. "What did you say?" "The national policy you just mentioned?" "I told you here, and Lao Li and the others also know about it." "The matter of the drought in Longyu Road," Li Qingxian interrupted Zhang Feng and said, "Mr. Xianben, let me say this. This matter was nothing in their eyes, but in the eyes of these pedantic people, it was the crime of deceiving the emperor. Other than the emperor, who could talk about national policy? The common people were forbidden to talk about court politics." Although Zhang Feng was considered an idle person at this time, if this spread out, it would be terrible. Therefore, Li Qingxian felt that it would be best to use their identities to speak to these pedantic old fogies. When Li Qingxian saw that they didn't speak, he said, "I'm sure you all know about the matter of Longyu Dao. Although His Majesty has indeed implemented the strategy against the Turks and Tibetans, you may not know that this was calculated by Fengzi long before His Majesty came up with a plan. And at that time, I only knew about it from my father and uncles." Yu Shinan added, "That's right, this kid is not simple. The beer you drink and the fine salt you eat are all made by this kid. Do you believe me?" An old man also clarified one more thing. Sun Simiao said with a smile, "The bone-strengthening powder, the insecticide powder that smokes the locusts, and the nourishing porridge on the mountain are all made by this guy. Don't say that I made them. I really can't afford to take the blame." Hiss. Ouyang Sun almost couldn't breathe and fainted. Although he had always heard Yu Shinan talk about this, to be honest, he didn't believe it at all.